You'll need to be on your best behavior. My father warns as he walks over to his office table. Dark rings hang under his eyes and his usual combed hair was messy, revealing another sleepless night. I inwardly sigh. As I walk towards the office table, I knew this sleepless night stemmed from the recent death of our pack member. And it didn't help that the anniversary of Mum's death was creeping around the corner. Who's coming? Alpha Andrew asks respectfully. He was always so formal, even if the Alpha was our dad. He was next in line and I was looking forward to watching him rule. But he won't be better than Dad. Emma, my wolf, comments. No, he won't. No one can be better than Dad. I replied. He took his time in answering, his fingers massaging his forehead. Pain tugged at my heart. I hated seeing him so tired and deflated. The two alphas from the Blood Moon pack. He states calmly, but the shiver that runs down his spine betrays his fear. For a moment, the whole room falls into silence. Before an argument quickly arises as my three brothers begin shouting at my father and each other. What the hell? Daniel says indignantly. His fists are clenched, as he tries to rein in his anger, while Harry, the youngest brother, takes a completely opposite approach to the news. They can't come here. They will slaughter us all. He takes a deep breath, trying to mask the panic evident on his face. I wait for Andrew's input. He's sitting in one of the chairs around the desk. His eyes are unfocused. As he begins creating a plan in his head, slowly rising, he quickly shakes his head to regain focus. No, they won't slaughter us. His voice radiates power and authority. If the two alphas want a war, then war is what we'll give them. Daniel and Mike take a moment to process what he says, before an argument breaks out again and their voices rise to a clamor. I couldn't be bothered listening to their argument, so I shift my attention to my dad. He was leaning against his chair, his arms folded neatly against his chest as he waited for his sons to quit arguing. But his patience was slowly waning, like Andrew. My dad rises from his chair and I look away, knowing what's going to happen next. Quiet, he roars, instantly grabbing their attention. They're not coming here to start a war. They are coming here to find their mate. What? I shout at my dad. They can't. No. They can't. My mind goes into overdrive as I try to process his words. I didn't want a mate. What if they come here and I'm their mate? No. That won't happen. I won't let it. Emma interrupts my train of thought. I hope they're our mate. She says happily. I really want our mate. I don't. She cuts off the connection, ignoring me. Before I can finish the sentence, the past year she had been ranting about how excited she was to find her mate. I didn't share her enthusiasm. Deep down, I did want a mate. I relished the idea of someone caring for me, protecting me. However, I worried. What if he was controlling and aggressive? What if he only wanted me to keep his wolf calm? Most importantly, what if he rejected me? When my mom was alive, she always reassured me that my mate would love me no matter what, but she wasn't here anymore to comfort me. So lost in thought, I didn't even notice my brothers standing protectively around me. We won't let them touch you, Daniel assures me. Agreed, my other two brothers say in unison. My lips curve into a small smile. I was touched, but I wouldn't let them get hurt. If unfortunately they did end up being my mate, maybe we can hide her. Andrew suggests. Stay in the city for a while. His eyes are unfocused again, as he devises a plan in his head. My smile widens with the idea. Maybe I could avoid them altogether. Flick. We'll hide you in the human town. Daniel adds, I'll start packing your clothes. We can leave tonight. Harry agrees as he walks towards the door with me and my brothers behind him. Stop. Dad growls, using his alpha command. With our heads bowed, we all return to the center of the room. No one is going anywhere. He pauses for a moment, sighing. I'm sorry, Flicker. Anger begins to rise inside me. How could my father keep me captive here? Didn't he want me to be happy? I raise my head, and my eyes meet his in a defiant stare. but my anger immediately dissipates when I see the tears at the brink of his eyes. Taking a deep breath, I remind myself that my father loves me. The two alphas know that I have a daughter. Escaping or hiding will only make them more aggressive, which may result in them retaliating and destroying the pack. My stomach sinks with dread. He was right. I could already imagine our entire pack lying in bloody ribbons as a consequence from my actions. I shudder in horror. I couldn't allow that to happen. Don't worry. I'll protect you, Andrew softly murmurs, taking the shudder as a sign of feeling scared rather than feeling immense horror. They're not going to be my mates. There are thousands of unmated females in the world. The moon goddess wouldn't be that cruel to pair me with them. I say to reassure my brothers and most importantly myself. They nod their heads in agreement, but their faces still remain etched with worry. Our father dismisses us from the room and my brothers immediately start up a conversation on battle strategy. But as I leave, I can't ignore the unwanted thought lurking at the edge of my mind. What if the moon goddess did pair me with the two alphas? After the meeting, I immediately head towards Kyle's house. At this current moment, he was the only person that could truly comfort me and calm my fears. Kyle and I had been best friends since we were 10. A year ago when I turned 16, I had secretly hoped that Kyle would be my mate. But my hopes were quickly crushed when Emma didn't recognize him as our mate. I shake my head, removing the sad thought as I quickly dodge past some kids laughing while running through the pack. It brings a small smile to my face, but unhappily reminds me that one day I would need to leave all this behind for some stupid mate. I pause for a moment, wondering if I had woken the sleeping dragon or in this case Emma inside of me. But she stays quiet, ignoring my previous statement. This pack was different to others. It wasn't focused on turning kids into killing machines at the age of 1. It allowed the children to grow up, explore, have some freedom before they started their training at the age of 16. Since I was the alpha's daughter, I had begun training at the age of 14. But that was still considered lucky, compared to our neighboring pack, the Crystal Moon. This pack forced its young wolves to start training at the young age of 7. Their lives revolved completely around training, orders, and discipline. I'd heard that many wolves envied our easy way of life. Continuing my walk, I lift my hand to the sky, embracing the warm autumn sun. It was just shy of winter, and already the trees surrounding the pack had lost most of its leaves. I personally have a strong dislike towards the season of winter. It was such a pain having to strip off all the heavy winter clothing when you wanted to shift, and it was torturously cold when you needed to shift back. Passing a group of adults talking, I freeze when I overhear one of them mention the two alphas, moving inconspicuously. I retreat back towards the group, so that I'm standing only a few steps behind them. Even with their werewolf senses, they're too engrossed in their conversation to notice me. I heard once that both alphas destroyed a whole pack, children and women included. A man says, his voice gruff. My body paralyzes with fear. Women and children included. How heartless were these alphas? Why? Why would they do such a thing? A woman with brown hair asks, her face filled with shock horror. Because the alpha wouldn't reveal where the traitor wolf which betrayed the twins' pack was hiding. As consequence, and to send a message to the other packs. They killed everyone. I bite my bottom lip to prevent it from quivering with fear. My hands were noticeably shaking now. I don't think I could survive being their mates. The adults hadn't noticed me yet, so I silently carry on listening. I've heard worse, another man says. A few years back, the alphas went on another trip to find their mate. When they arrived at the Bloodwater pack, the alpha prevented the twins from seeing his daughter. What happened, he grimaces. The two alphas killed the Bloodwater alpha, and then once they discovered that the girl wasn't their mate, they killed her as well. I gasp in horror, my chest rising and falling rapidly, as I begin to panic. What if that happened to me? At the sound of my gasp, the adults turn their head in my direction. I expect them to be angry that I was eavesdropping, but instead, they send me a sympathetic look before leaving to a more private location. I don't know which I prefer, the anger or the sympathy. Pull yourself together, Flick. I mutter as I take a deep breath. I notice quite obviously that Emma hasn't said anything. I roll my eyes. She wouldn't want to say anything against them in case in the unfortunate event that they were our mates. If they weren't, though. I pitied any she-wolf who had them. After hearing those stories, I wouldn't survive being their mate. Nor could I survive their dominant, aggressive, and extremely possessive nature. All I wanted was a mate like Kyle, an ordinary male wolf with a caring, loving nature and friendly disposition. I wanted no titles. Not even a beta or gamma as a mate. And especially not an alpha. I didn't want the enormous responsibility of being Luna. Arriving at Kyle's house. I don't bother knocking on the door as I enter. Flicker. Kyle calls out uncertainly. Yep, it's me. I say tiredly, walking towards the sound of his voice. He appears at the top of the stairs. His wet hair, dripping water all over the stairs. While his t-shirt clings to his defining muscles, he rushes down, enveloping me in a big, warm hug. Hey. Are you okay? I question as he finally releases me. I'm just worried about the two alphas. I don't want them to hurt you. His expression is soft and kind, but not sympathetic and pitiful compared to other people in the pack. Another reason why I loved him so much. They won't touch me, and before you comment, they won't be my mate. I turn my back to him. As I make my way to the kitchen, hoping that he doesn't smell my fear or uncertainty. You're beautiful, Flicker. Strong, confident, and a fighter. I blush at his comment. As much as I hate to say it, they might be your mate. But with these stories circulating around the pack, I would rather spend eternity in hell than let you go with them. Stop. Please stop. I turn to face him. Similar to my brother's, his face is etched with worry and concern. Promise me. Please promise me if they're my mates, you won't do anything stupid. I plead, but it appears to fall on deaf ears. You're not my mate, Flick, but I love you, and your brothers and I have discovered a way to escape if the twins are your mates. Hope rises inside of me, but it is soon squashed by the thought of how the alphas would retaliate. They would attack the pack. I can't leave. He turns and gives me another comforting hug. They wouldn't dare attack the pack. Not when the pack members are their Luna's family. I pull back and see Kyle grinning madly as if he has just discovered the alpha's weakness. But the word Luna plays on repeat in my mind. Was I really strong enough to become Luna, noticing my worried expression? He hugs me again. Don't stress, Flick. You have nothing to worry about, he says, trying to reassure me, leading me away from the kitchen and towards the couch. He turns on the TV to a random channel and takes a seat next to me, allowing me to lean my head on his shoulder, feeling safe and at home for the first time since I heard the news. I allow myself to fall into a blissful sleep. The bright afternoon sun streams in through the window, alerting me of the time that's passed. Lifting my head, I glance next to me where Kyle should be. The seat is cold and empty. He must have left a few hours ago. But I smile at the fleecy blanket he's placed on top of me. I sigh, why couldn't he be my mate? Because our mate will be better than Kyle. Emma says, Sure. I mutter to myself, noticing how it is only now that she decides to speak up, lifting the blanket off. I stretch my relaxed muscles. Now would be the perfect time to go for a run. Exiting the house, I transform into my wolf. Emma was pure white, quite a rare color. The majority of the wolves had a brown coat. My brothers did so, did my dad. But I inherited the beautiful silk white color from my mum. Being in my wolf form, all my senses were enhanced. Everything became clearer, and my favorite part was that I was able to see further into the distance. Where are we heading? Emma says excitedly, as I begin to sprint through the forest, creating my own path. Compared to other wolves, Emma and I had a very good relationship, but I was beginning to become concerned that the mate issue would place a strain on this relationship. She didn't care who we had as a mate. She just wanted him right now. I just wanted my freedom and independence to last for a little longer. Another year would be nice. But deep inside, I knew that my freedom would be curtailed sooner than I wanted. The afternoon was always my favorite time to go running. The forest was devoid of all wolves. My dad. The alpha had warned all the female pack members that it was too dangerous and unsafe to go at night, in case there was ever a rogue that slipped through our carefully guarded perimeter. Naturally, everyone listened to him. But it wasn't an alpha command, and the guards didn't arrive at the perimeter until later, so I had the whole forest to myself. This made Emma and I extremely happy. Dad. My brothers and Kyle always assumed that I was in the dining hall eating dinner, resulting in most nights sneaking food into my room. But the empty forest was always worth it. The setting sun shone brightly through the trees. In its final attempt to provide light, relinquishing control over my body, I happily allow Emma to take control. She darts in and out of the trees, pushing herself to the maximum speed. Emma slows down as she nears the small pond full of water, and I use this moment to take back control of my wolf form, drinking from the water. It quickly replenishes my energy, and I'm eager to run again. Glancing up at the sky, I'm shocked at how much time has passed. The sky is sprinkled with tiny stars scattered across the horizon. Sighing. As much as I wanted to run, I knew that I needed to head back to the pack. My dad and overprotective brothers will be fuming if they discovered I spent my evenings running through the forest. When my mum was killed by rogues a few years ago, Dad fell into a state of depression. The first few months were the worst. He sat frozen in his room, blaming himself entirely for her death. Andrew was 14 at the moment and was forced to take on the alpha responsibilities as Dad slowly recovered. Those months were the worst of my entire life. After Dad healed, he promised that he would protect me to the best of his ability, which is why he had guards patrolling the outskirts of the pack every night. As I slowly head back, I come across the irresistible smell of vanilla and a smell of fresh rain. Deciding to follow the scent, which leads me away from the pack house and towards a small clearing east of the village. The delicious scents become stronger, and by the time I enter the clearing, it's overpowering. The moon provides ample light to scout the clearing, and my eyes fall upon two pitch-black wolves in the distance. There's our mates. Emma screams in my head, and a stream of panic instantly washes over me. With their pitch-black coats and large form, it suddenly dawns on me that these were the two twin alphas. Taking a breath to calm my racing heart and stop my panicking, I try to think of an escape plan, but everything ends with the pack slaughtered as a result. Slowly taking a step back, my first plan of action was to head quietly back to the safety of the pack without being seen. What are you doing? They're our mates. Run to them. Emma yells, but I ignore her, concentrating on the task at hand. Emma continues her endless rant of screaming at me that I eventually feel a small headache forming at the back of my mind. I begin to think as I near the forest. Why would the moon goddess pair me with these two alpha twins? Why would she be so cruel? I hadn't done anything to deserve them. My paws accidentally step on a twig, snapping it immediately and alerting the attention of the twin alphas. I'm frozen in place as they turn towards me, meeting my gaze. Emma howls with joy as she tries to connect with their wolves, but I wasn't going to let that happen. With a burst of unknown speed, I turn around and race back to the pack. I was the daughter of the alpha. With this head start, I should be able to easily outrun them. But I heard the lie in my words. I'm halfway to the pack house, my safe haven, when my ears prick up at the sound of oncoming paws. I try desperately to run faster, but my efforts are futile. The scent of fresh rain collides with me as one of the alphas leap onto my back, flipping me over. His eyes are pitch black, indicating that his wolf is entirely in control. You're mine. He growls possessively, but I refuse to look at him, showing a clear sign of disrespect. Maybe they would reject me, I think. Hope momentarily fills me at the thought. Maybe they would find another attractive female who desperately wants to become Luna. Emma begins whining melancholically inside my head at my thoughts, but I continue to ignore her. I didn't want the responsibility of being Luna. At my clear disrespect, the alpha applies pressure on my paws and a wince escapes my throat as I bare my neck in submission. He quickly releases me. Stepping off me, I get up, but I continue to remain in a submissive position with my head bowed. Years ago, I heard a rumor that the alphas were old-fashioned. Apparently, they strongly believed that their Luna was beneath them, not equal in status. If this rumor was true, I wouldn't survive being their mate. Shift. The other alpha orders, watching me with scrutiny. The one that smells like vanilla continues talking. Go behind a tree. I'll find you a shirt. Walking behind the tree. I sneak a look at the alphas shifting. In their human form, they are gloriously beautiful. Both have ripped stomachs and strong muscular arms. They begin searching the trees for clothing. It was customary for each pack to place clothing in the trunks of the trees. For when we shifted, taking another glance, Emma begins to speak up. They're ours. She coaxes, and I can imagine her licking her lips. Please give them a chance. I'm sorry. I just can't. My apology lands on deaf ears. But I can't get roped into this lifestyle. The position of Luna frightens me, and I don't want to be restrained by the two dominating alphas. I want the chance to roam the woods freely without the presence of my mates or guards, using this sacred opportunity as the alphas are distracted searching for a shirt. I take a dress hidden in the tree trunk and shift back into a wolf. I grip the dress between my teeth as I sprint back towards the pack house. Reaching the door, I prick my ears and hear the two alphas in the forest, still searching for some clothes. I had a few seconds to spare. I needed to escape. Kyle's words come back to me from this morning. They wouldn't dare attack the pack. Not when the pack members are their mate's family. Quickly shifting, I place the dress on and storm through the front door. I'm surprised to see my brothers and Kyle crowded around the table. We've got a plan to get you out of the pack before the alphas arrive. Kyle says proudly, they're here and they're my mates. I'm getting my stuff and leaving. I state as their eyes go wide with shock. Shit. My brothers say in unison. I rush up the stairs to my bedroom. My brothers and Kyle following right behind me. Where did you meet them? Andrew says, frustration and angst seeping into his voice as he paces up and down my bedroom. In the forest. I turn my back to them as I haphazardly throw clothes into the suitcase, waiting for their outburst. What were you doing in the forest at night by yourself? Kyle says, anger coloring his voice. I turn and see that his eyes are flickering between the color blue and black. His wolf was surfacing. I take a moment and rest my hand on his shoulder, comforting him. His eyes turn back to the beautiful bright ocean blue. Unfortunately, I can't change the angry expression on his face. Even though Kyle and I weren't mates, he and his wolf was very protective of me. Look, I'm sorry. I turn, facing them all. But I love being in the forest alone with Emma. It's the only time where I feel truly free. Looking at my brothers, their angry expression slips off their face, replacing it with an expression of understanding and acceptance. I'm going to miss all of you so much, I say as tear escapes my eye. But I can't stay with them. When I ran here, they were still in the woods looking for a shirt for me to wear. I've got about a minute to leave this pack. Andrew walks towards the bedroom door. Let's go, Flick, he says, gazing down at me sadly. We exit the bedroom, running down the stairs as we head towards the door. The rest of you stay here and create a cover story for Flick, Andrew says. Daniel. Harry and Kyle immediately start to argue with his decision, demanding that they come with me, but my brother sends them all a withering look which silences them all immediately. Daniel and Harry hug me tightly. I know that I'm going to miss them dearly, however, I'm going to miss Kyle the most. He was my best friend. He loved and understood me better than anyone else. Kyle doesn't say anything but embraces me with a warm hug which tells me that he loves me and that he will always love and care for me. I give Kyle one last goodbye hug. When the door breaks open, the wood immediately shatters, causing pieces of debris to fly everywhere. Kyle automatically places me behind him, protecting me from the onslaught of broken wood. However, it's not the wood I'm worried about. It's the two angry alphas standing in the doorway. My brothers and Kyle stand protectively around me, shielding me from the twin alphas. Give me our mate. The one that smells like rain demands. Growling furiously, his eyes are pitch black. A clear sign that his wolf has taken over. My eldest brother takes a step forward. He is next in line for the alpha position and is the only one here who contains the most power. I'm sure we can negotiate this. He tries but is interrupted by their threateningly growls. My heart is beating 1,000 miles per minute, and I involuntarily take a step back, distancing myself further from the alphas. I didn't want to go with them. The one smelling of fresh rain narrows his eyes as he notices my retreat. He sends me a dark look as if he's daring me to escape again. But both he and I know that this time I wouldn't get further than the outside of the house, if our mate doesn't come with us. The vanilla-scented alpha announces, sending a shiver running down my spine. We will destroy this pack and everything in it. A loud horror-filled gasp escapes my throat, and I look at the alpha's smug and conceited faces, further repulsing me from them. I guess Kyle and my brothers were wrong. These two alphas would destroy this pack. Even if their mate had family there, they were more heartless than either of us could have imagined. Defeated and knowing there was no chance for escape with my pack at stake, I begin to slowly make my way towards the alphas, but a hand pulls me back. Kyle's. I smile sadly at him as he continues to grip my hand, making his way towards me. Don't. I whisper, suddenly afraid for him. But he ignores my request and embraces me in a final goodbye hug. Standing directly in front of the alphas, I embrace and treasure his hug. Knowing it will be the last one I'll ever receive, I'm about to end it. When he is pulled from my grasp and flung across the room, he hits the wall with a loud thump, falling to the floor. Screaming, I rush towards him, but am hit with the smell of fresh rain as strong, muscular arms hold me back. No one touches what is ours. He growls in my ear, his wolf still evidently in control. Please. I beg as I turn to face him, tears streaming wildly down my face. I won't fight, I'll come with you, just please let me see that he is okay. Please. He stares at me unyielding, but his eyes soften at my response. They flick back to the normal color of ocean blue, and he whispers, 1 minute. I nod, running towards Kyle as my brothers crowd around him. Close up. His chest is faintly moving slowly up and down, and I sigh in relief. He's okay. Flick. He whispers, his eyes opening slightly. Don't go. Please. The two alphas growl in warning. I smile sadly down at Kyle. I want to run my hands through his hair, but I didn't want to make the alphas angry again. Promise that you won't come after me. That you'll look after yourself. Kyle shakes his head in response. Kyle, I say, starting to panic. I can't leave without his promise. I won't let him place himself in danger to protect me. I couldn't let the alphas hurt him again. Okay. He whispers defeatedly. Closing his eyes from exhaustion, I turn my back on my brothers, knowing that I will be asking too much if I hug them as well. Tell Dad. I love him, I say, and my brothers nod in reply. I'll miss you guys. I mouth as both alphas grip each hand and lead me out of the pack house towards the waiting car. The strawberry-scented alpha opens the door for me, and I slide fearfully into the back seat. Hello, Luna. I'm Luke, the alpha's beta. The man driving the car tells me, as he smiles at me in the rearview mirror, please don't call me Luna. My name is Flicker, but everyone calls me Flick. It's nice to meet you, Flick. The growl of the two alphas cuts him short. Before he can finish, they're both sitting squished next to me in the back. I don't care what Flicker says. The alpha, smelling of fresh rain, says, my body betrays me with a shiver of pleasure running down my back at the sound of my name. Damn. I think my body can't betray me like this. I can't fall in love with them, not when I've heard all their horror stories, and especially not when they've threatened my pack. Glancing down at me, the alpha smirks before continuing. You will always address her as Luna. Understood, Luke. Understood, Alpha. I don't let my emotions show. But inside I'm shocked. Not letting the beta call me by my name. How ridiculous. I begin to worry about how possessive and territorial these twin alphas were. I've already started to miss my pack as I stare outside the window, watching as everything passes by in a blur. A tear escapes my eyes as it finally dawns on me that I would never see Kyle or my family ever again. I can feel the stares of the alphas weighing down on me, but I ignore them as I innocently wipe the tear away. We quickly reach the outskirts of the pack. The pine trees that border are now the only thing that fills my vision, inwardly sighing. I redirect my attention back to the alphas and gather some unknown courage to ask, "What's your names?" My voice is barely above whisper. But in the quiet of the car, they hear it. "My name is Jake." The alpha with the scent that smells like fresh rain says, "And my name is Connor." The other alpha says. I nod in response. When rough hands grab my chin, moving it so I make eye contact with Jake. Never nod in response, always answer with "Yes, Jake," or "Yes, Connor." He says, "Yes, Jake." I reply, suddenly terrified. "And never look at us directly in the eye unless we're talking to you." Connor adds, "Yes, Connor." I reply, I was suddenly terrified. I couldn't live with these rules restraining me. Weren't Lunas equal to their alphas looking back at my childhood? Mum had always showed Dad respect, however, she was always equal to him. How old-fashioned were these alphas? Did they really expect me to obey their every whim? As Luna, will I be equal to you, I question. unsure at this moment if I was overstepping my boundaries. The car is silent for a moment before they both snort with laughter. But the laughter quickly dies and the alphas become deathly serious. You will never be equal to us. You are higher than the pack wolf and slightly higher than our beta, but you will never have equal power than us. Connor states arrogantly, as if it's the most obvious thing in the world. We will decide when to mark you, and then we will decide when you will have our pups, and rest assured you will have many pups. Jake says, his tone deathly serious, as if he is daring me to question him. Yes, Jake and Connor. My voice is barely audible, but they somehow seem to hear it. I feel like I'm going to be sick. They're going to mark me without my permission. How many kids did they expect me to have? Childbirth was very dangerous for she-wolves, and even more dangerous for Lunas. Often it sadly resulted in death. My hands begin to shake slightly in fear, and I quickly tuck them under my legs, hiding them before the alphas can see. I can't let them know how scared I am. Emma, help me. I plead. She had been silent the whole car trip, and I wanted to know her opinion. They're going to mate with us. I'm so excited. Do you think it will happen soon? Emma says, and I realize for the first time that I'm all alone. What about their behavior? According to Jake and Connor, they think that we're inferior to them. There's a long pause, and I know that Emma doesn't like this either. It's not them. It's their wolves. They're both really territorial and possessive. They strongly believe we're inferior to them. It's what's driving Jake and Connor to think this way. Emma would never reveal this to me, but I know that this is upsetting her. Can we do anything, I ask in hope, but deep down I know my efforts will be futile if I attempt to do anything. I'm trying to reason with their wolves, but they're ganging up on me. Don't do anything to agitate them in your human form. I've got to go. Their wolves are starting to get angry. Emma, wait. But I don't get any response. She needed to be careful. These were two powerful alphas that she was arguing with. I discreetly flick my eyes towards Jake and Connor. They're both distracted, talking to their wolves. I continue watching. When their eyes begin to flicker, changing between their human and wolf form. Shit. What was Emma saying to them? Menacing growls cut me from my thoughts, and I look up to face two furious wolves alone. You will never leave us, or you will be punished, understood. I slowly look up to see Jake's whole face contorted with anger, taking a gulp. I suddenly wish that I could sit up the front with the beta. Or even better, pretend that this was just a really horrible dream. Yes, Jake. I reply, looking into his pitch-black eyes. My name's not Jake. It's Ryder. I bow my head. I apologize, Ryder. I sense him nodding his head in satisfaction with the response. I'm about to take a deep breath of relief when Ryder unlocks my seatbelt and forcibly brings me onto his lap, his arms strangling my chest, preventing me from jumping out of the car. You still stink of that other wolf, he remarks. Disgust is evident in his voice as he pushes me against his chest, placing his scent on me. You're ours, Flicker. The moon goddess granted us a mate so that she may serve us. Don't ever try to leave. With the disrespect your wolf gave us, I feel like you should be punished, but because you're our mate, we'll give you another chance. Connor tells me. I glance up, and by the pitch blackness of his eyes, I realize that his wolf was still in control. Yes. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. My head is bowed in a position of respect, but I can't help the goosebumps that are creeping up my arm. A hand cups my chin so that I'm eye level with Connor. His eyes have returned to the emerald green color. My wolf's name is Zach, he says softly, trying to soothe me. He moves closer to me, taking up my original seat. I sigh inwardly. I guess I would be sitting on Jake's lap for the rest of the car trip. Please don't be afraid of us, Connor adds, his voice soft and melodic. But our wolves are very possessive and very powerful. Please, for your sake, listen to them. Jake cuts in. We do try to control them, but if we don't listen to them, they become really angry and then we lose control altogether. I listen attentively as I discover this newfound information, replying when necessary with, yes, Jake, or with, yes, Connor. As I listen to them, I begin to notice that Jake's voice is an octave lower, that Connor's. He also seems to be more stern and dominant than his brother. Connor cups my hands, sending sparks flying down my arms. Please, Flicker, it is essential that you respect us. Any disrespect and we or our wolves will have to punish you. Understand, I turn to look at him, providing Connor with my full attention. The two alphas fall silent, giving me time to think. Even with this revelation, I still didn't understand how I'm going to survive living with them or being Luna. The human side of them seem okay, but I'm unsure about their wolves. And because they're alphas, their wolves will always have a lot of control over them. The car stops suddenly, and I watch as the beta steps out of the car. What's happening, I ask. Quite confused, but the alphas don't respond, and I'm starting to worry. The beta opens the trunk door, and I hear him grab something before closing the trunk. He opens the left door, and I see the object. It's a syringe. He hands it to Connor, glancing at me sympathetically before shutting the door and returning to the front. What are you doing? I whisper, my voice laced with fear and panic. After your wolf threatened to leave us, we've had to take further precaution to make sure you never leave. This unfortunately means that we need to drug you, just so you don't know the location of the pack and have no knowledge on how to leave and enter. I try to squirm out of Jake's arms, but they're as strong as steel bars. He doesn't budge at all. Panic begins to rise inside me as Connor advances forward. I hated needles. It was the one thing I truly detested, and I needed to know how to get out of the pack. Please. I beg as I desperately try to squirm out of Jake's grasp. I won't leave. Just please don't use the needle on me. Tears are streaming wildly down my face, falling onto Jake's arm. I've never known where this phobia of needles came from, and it probably makes me look weak, but in this moment I really didn't care. Connor halts in his attempts with trying to inject the serum. Do you promise? Connor asks. I take a moment to mull this over in my head. In the werewolf world, promises were sacred. To break one was greatly frowned upon, and in my situation would probably result with me being punished by the two alphas. Connor takes my reluctance as a no, while Jake starts to tighten his grip on my shoulder. But I hadn't given up. Thankfully, the beta had started driving again, leaving me with the perfect opportunity. Just as the needle is about to pierce my skin, I scream. Look, there's a rogue. The car swerves as the beta tries to search for the rogue. Everyone is focused on looking for the rogue that they've forgotten about me momentarily, and as a result, Jake's grip on my arm has loosened considerably, using my only opportunity. I unlock the door and jump out instantly, readying myself for the landing. But before I even reach the ground, strong arms wrap around my waist, pulling me back to the car. Shit, I mutter. If I thought the alphas were angry before, it was nothing compared to how they look now. They were absolutely livid. What the hell were you thinking? Jake screams at me as he moves me into the middle seat. I'm now again trapped between two extremely angry alphas. I'm about to respond when I feel a small prick of pain in my shoulder. I turn suddenly to see Connor inject the last of the serum. Hoau ku uldu. I try to ask, but my words are already becoming slurred. Sleep, Connor demands as he and Jake kiss my forehead. Nevvar. I try to reply, as sleep overcomes me and I fall into a restless sleep. I wake up to dappled sunlight filtering in through a window. I try to get up, but am restricted by two muscular arms wrapped around my waist, preventing me from leaving. Confusion hits me as I try to figure out how I arrived here, because I can't get up. I do my best to scan the room, but it provides me with no clues as to why I'm here. As I take a glance at the two males sleeping beside me, my memories suddenly come flooding back, and I begin to recall the events of yesterday. I had two possessive alpha mates. They believed I was inferior to them. They drugged me, so I couldn't escape. My breathing quickens, while my heart rate escalates as it slowly dawns on me that they were eventually going to force me to mate with them. Taking a deep breath to slow my racing heart, I knew deep down that I would need to find a way to escape. But first I had to get my priorities straight. I needed to get out of this bed as I was slowly overheating, lying next to these two alphas, and I really needed to use the bathroom. Hoping to not wake them, I gently lift their arms off me as I begin to slide out of the bed, but a hand grips my arm, stopping me. Where are you going, little mate? Jake says, turning his face towards me. There is a sinister undertone to his voice. To the bathroom. I whisper innocently, looking at him directly. He nods his head in consent before closing his eyes again. Entering the bathroom, I lock the door and make my way over to the mirror. I cover the gasp with my hand as I see the large bruises along my arm, where the alphas gripped me too tightly yesterday. Luckily, my neck is still untouched, and I realize that it will only stay this way if I find a way to escape. If I did find a way, I would have to head to my pack first and warn them of the two oncoming angry alphas. Sighing, I lean against the bench. I knew it was extremely selfish, but I could see no other way. Staying with them just wasn't an option. After I finish in the bathroom, I stare at the locked door, dreading opening it. Summing up some unknown courage, I unlock the door. Stepping out, I glance at the alphas. They were still asleep. I decide to use this opportunity to explore their house. It would be helpful to know the layout for my escape. I quietly head towards the bedroom door, hoping not to disturb them. "Where are you going?" Jake asks, his voice icy, and I pause in my tracks. Shifting my attention towards him, they're both awake, sitting upright in bed, bare-chested. I have trouble averting my eyes. "You wouldn't be sneaking out to leave, would you?" Connor asks, his death-like gaze on me. "Because if you do try and escape, you will be punished, Flicker." "Yes, I understand, Connor," I say as I try to think of an excuse to fix the situation. "I was just creeping down to explore the house, and I didn't want to disturb either of you." It was the honest truth for the moment. Later, I would try to escape. With a pleading look on my face, they finally accept my excuse. "Well, you can't go downstairs dressed in those clothes." I peer down, thankful that I'm still wearing my old clothes from yesterday. For once, since I met him, Jake was right. I couldn't wear these. "We've placed some clothes at the edge of the chair over there." He points to the armchair situated in the corner of the room. I grab the clothes and head towards the bathroom, but a growl halts me. "I'm going to go get dressed." "Isn't that what you want? Get dressed here?" Connor says, smirking. "No." I watch as their eyes flicker black, and it takes the alphas a little while to gain back control over their wolves. "You're ours, Flicker. You will do what we ask, or we can let Ryder and Zach talk to you." A shiver runs down my spine at the mention of their wolves, and I tentatively place the clothes on the bed. No one had even seen my body before. And for their pleasure, these two alphas wanted me to change. It completely disgusts me and only adds to the growing reasons as to why I need to leave. Turning my back towards them, I take my top off. "Turn around." Jake growls. I have no choice to agree. Taking a deep breath, I turn around and begin taking my jeans off. I pause as I look at the fresh pair of undergarments on the bed. They can't be serious. I lift my eyes to theirs and meet their lust-filled stare. Watching me with scrutiny, I change my undergarments until I'm standing there in front of them. Quickly grabbing the clothes, I go to put them on. "Wait." The two alphas say in unison. I watch as they both slide out of the bed and stalk towards me. "You're so beautiful, Flick." Connor whispers in my ear as he leaves a trail of kisses along my back. It sends sparks flying and I moan in pleasure. Jake kisses my front. Starting from my neck, he kisses the sweet point where he is going to mark me until he makes his way down to my stomach, and then begins the slow, torturous trail of kisses up my stomach back towards my neck. Connor begins kissing around my neck, and Jake soon joins him. I am so overwhelmed with their kisses and touch that I barely notice when they both begin licking the sweet spot on my neck. In preparation for marking me, my body tenses on realization. They're going to mark me without permission. I go to step back out of their grasp. But as if reading my mind, Connor wraps his hand around my side, keeping me in position. I try wriggling out, but Jake's other hand grips my other side, squeezing me until it is almost too painful to move. "Emma, help me." I try contacting her, but there is no response. To be marked by an alpha mate, I've heard, is incredibly painful. My mother explained it to me when I was younger. She said that it felt like every bone in your body was breaking. This pain could last for a few hours or a few days, and then the female afterwards would sleep, allowing her body to change and have undying love for her mates. Something I did not want at the moment. "Please." I whisper softly, but I know they can hear it. Tears slowly fall down my face as I feel their canines pressed against my skin. "Please." They halt in their process, and I hope that they've stopped. That they'll wait for my permission. "Flick." I turn towards Jake, but by his pure obsidian eyes, I know it is Ryder who called me. My heartbeat accelerates, and he frowns as he hears it. "You're ours, Flick. For us to control." Zach adds, "And for us to mark when we want." They bare their canines and I close my eyes, promising myself that I would never fall in love with them. Taking a deep breath, I wait for the agonizing pain that is going to come. As their teeth graze my neck, a loud knock is heard coming from the door. We're busy. Ryder says, frustration and annoyance seeping into his tone as he lifts his head towards the door. He goes back to my neck but stops when a voice is heard behind the door. Jake, I don't care if either of you're busy, there are rogues at the border. At the mention of rogues, both alphas step away, their eyes going back to their normal coloring as they quickly regain control. Stalking towards the door, they leave the room without a backward glance at me. Which direction? I hear them. North. The other wolf says, and I'm assuming it's their beta because no other wolf would be able to disrespect the alpha like that. Not even me. Sighing at the thought. I will always be inferior. But I'm extremely grateful for the interruption. I needed to get out of here. I couldn't let the alphas control me like that. Like I'm a piece of property. A pawn in their chess game. The thought fills me with repulsion, but it was undeniably true. They didn't care about me, just the power I could bring them from becoming Luna. Hearing the front door close, I quickly place my clothes on and step outside. Wow is my first thought. It's absolutely beautiful. Decorative pieces of artwork line the cream walls along with chandeliers hanging from the ceiling every few meters. A grand spiral staircase sits in the middle of the floor and I can just imagine myself sliding down it. Alongside my room, I notice a few other bedrooms. I wonder who occupies them. I begin walking towards the staircase when two male wolves step in front of me, blocking my path. I'm sorry, Luna, but the alphas said that you weren't allowed to leave the room. One of the guards states, I am not your Luna. I reply aggressively. Both of their faces fall as if I have just delivered a blow to their stomach. I immediately feel the pinpricks of guilt forming inside of me. I rest my hand on his shoulder. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to be rude. I'm just really new to all of this. Please call me Flicker. Their faces brighten up, reminding me of the same temperament as a puppy. While I seem to be on their good side, I begin asking questions. So who occupies the other rooms? They're empty for the use of your future pups. I immediately feel nauseous, but I plaster a smile on my face for show. A quick scan of the floor and I count 10 rooms in total. I now really had to get out of here. Childbirth was an extremely torturous process and sometimes resulted in the death of the she-wolf. For Lunas, the chances were even higher. To have 4 children was considered extremely lucky. Having any more than that was considered to be flirting with death. The alphas could find someone else to be their Luna. I needed to get out of here. Is there guards circling the house in case any rogues manage to sneak into the pack? I innocently ask. There are no guards circling the mansion. The rogues would never make it this far in. The guard affirms. My chances of escape rises. We can send some wolves to patrol the border if you want, Lun. Sorry, Flicker. No, that's okay. I'll feel safe with both of you protecting me. I flash them a smile before I walk back to my room, devising my escape plan. From Connor's perspective, he veers left, following the strong scent of rogues at the border. Their rancid scent left a bad taste in his mouth, and he wished to be back with his beautiful mate. Flick. Last night he had received his best night's sleep in forever. Watching her in bed, she had looked so adorable whilst she slept and had fit perfectly sleeping between his brother and him. However, his thoughts turn sour when he realizes what they nearly did this morning. Marking her without her permission. He felt completely awful. Zach didn't care about how she felt. He just wanted to claim her as his own so he could start the second part of the mating process. Disgust bubbled inside of him as he remembered the tears falling down her face as she begged them to stop. We need to apologize to our mate. He mind links Jake. I know. I couldn't even look at her when we left today. Neither could I. Our beautiful mate in tears and knowing that it was our doing. We need to control our wolves better. Agreed. With their alpha speed, they race towards the rogues, catching up to them easily. He pounces on top of the closest one, ripping out its neck in the process. Back to my perspective. I push the window open, letting the cool breeze wrap around my body. Glancing down. It was a 2-story drop which would injure a human easily. But as a wolf I jumped down with ease, landing softly on the ground so I wouldn't raise any unwanted attention. Looking up at the window, I checked to see if the guards had heard me, but after a second passes, no one appears. Grinning triumphantly, I shift into my beautiful white wolf. Emma still wasn't talking to me, and I hoped that she would come back again. I desperately needed her help in escaping. Taking a deep breath. There would be no going back after this. My only hope would be that the guards don't check on me and I could somehow find my way out of this pack and head home. I set off in a sprint, and just like my mates this morning, I don't glance back. After a few minutes of not encountering any pack members, I begin to slow down. All that surrounds me is a forest filled with large conifer trees and the eerie yet comforting silence of the forest. The wind pushes me forward, and now my only aim is to find a warm, safe place to rest by nightfall. From Jake's perspective, he rips out the neck of the last rogue. Their coats were covered with blood, but it had been worth it. They had come too close to their pack borders, and now they had a mate to protect. Thinking of Flicker brought a smile to his face. She was so beautiful. He couldn't wait to have her sleeping next to him in bed tonight. Thinking about Flicker. Connor, mind links. What else is there to think about, true? He agrees, and together they race back towards the pack. We need to show her around and get her to meet the pack members. And then we should take her out for dinner somewhere. And then you will mark her. Ryder says, I'll see. In truth, he wouldn't have the patience to wait any longer. He knows he promised himself that he wouldn't forcefully mark Flicker, but he was becoming restless, and so was his wolf. Flicker belonged to them. As her mate and alpha, they have the right to choose when to mark her. Soon it will be the full moon and Ryder will be in full control. If he didn't mark her before then, Ryder will. He glances at Connor and notices that he is arguing with his wolf. He gives out a vicious snarl and meets his gaze. We need to mark Flicker. I know what I said before, but we can't be seen to have a soft demeanor. Other packs need to understand that we're strong, powerful alphas who can control their Luna, and our wolves are going to forcefully and probably viciously mark her if we don't. Connor adds. He was right. When someone becomes an alpha, their wolves became more powerful. They can sometimes take control of the person. Their wolves were so desperate to mate Flicker because once mated, Flicker's bond would heighten their alpha powers significantly. Don't forget she is ours. We control what she does and how she acts. He reminds him. She is subservient to us. They are halfway to the pack when the wind changes direction and with it blows Flicker's scent heading away from the pack house. He hears Connor's growl before he can start with his own. I just checked with the wolves guarding her. They said she's left the room. Jumped out of the window. He is shocked. What makes her think she can leave him? Flicker belongs to them. She will be punished for this. He says, certainly. She needs to learn that as her mates we own and control her. Changing direction. Connor and he let their wolves become in control as they follow Flicker's scent. He hears Ryder trying to communicate with Emma. But somehow Flicker has blocked him out. This only makes him more furious. As a result, his anger begins to grow, and for once he's happy to relinquish control and let Ryder deal with Flicker. From my perspective, I feel Ryder trying to communicate with Emma, and I instantly block it off as I continue to get further and further away from the pack. Panic sets in at the thought that they know I'm escaping. But I try to ignore it instead, pushing myself to go faster. I still have a head start and a chance of actually getting out. But Emma is fighting me at every turn, chanting in my head desperately to turn back. You want me to go back to my two possessive mates that believe I'm their property and only want me to increase their alpha powers, I question. But there are mates who love us. Emma tries to reason, but her argument falls on deaf ears. I won't ever give in to them. When have they showed us love, Emma? When I scream at her. But she doesn't respond. I can hear the sound of paws in the distance, but I don't slow down. I can't give up. I've already gotten this far. After 2 minutes of running, I notice that it's oddly quiet. It sounds almost like my mates have stopped in their pursuit to catch me. I breathe a sigh of relief. Maybe they've decided to find someone else to be their Luna. I keep running, my eyes set on the path in front of me. Unfortunately, I don't notice the large black alpha wolf leaping out of the forest until it's too late. I scream as the black wolf pins me to the floor. I know it's Jake by the scent of rain. Calming me slightly but gazing into his eyes, I know that Jake is nowhere here. Ryder is in control, and my heart rate spikes. I try wriggling out from his grip, but it only earns me a vicious growl and I immediately stop. Turning my head to the side, I see Zach circling me. with a look of anger present in his eyes. "Why did you leave us?" Ryder yells. I'm so terrified that I can't look him in the eye, but then I remember the events that brought me here and my confidence grows. Because I am not your property. "You don't own me," I hear Zach laughing. "You're wrong, darling." He moves closer to me that I can feel his breath on my face. "Every inch of you belongs to us." I gulp nervously, but as I gaze at Ryder, an idea forms in my head. Maybe I can get them to reject me. "Why don't you just reject me and claim another more subservient she-wolf?" Ryder pauses like he's seriously thinking of the idea. But then both Zach and Ryder growl ferociously like I've committed some grave sin. "Another she-wolf would not provide us with as much power as our true mate." Ryder spits out. Disgust bubbles inside me. That's all they see me, as a means to get more power. Why, Moon Goddess? Why would you put me with these two mates? I hate both of you. I whisper, and I regret it instantly. Sadness flickers across Ryder's face, and I almost hear a whine from Zach. When I look back at Ryder, his sudden sadness is replaced with fury, and I'm petrified. Ryder bends his face closer to mine, and for a split second I think he is going to mark me. I desperately try to wriggle out of his grasp, but Ryder only puts more pressure on me, causing me to wince. "I'll give you something to hate," he says viciously before piercing his canines into my shoulder. My screams echo throughout the woods as his teeth connects with bone. The pain is unbearable, like my whole body is being ripped apart by rogues. I beg him to stop. Tears streaming from my face, but he only sinks his teeth further. Emma tries communicating to him, but it's no use. I glance at Zach, but he seems to be pleased with what Ryder is doing. I bare my neck in submission, hoping that Ryder will stop, but he doesn't. "I'm sorry." I scream as the pain becomes too much, and I shift into my human form, sinking into unconsciousness. From Jake's perspective, gaining back control, he retracts his teeth from her shoulder. Blood is spilling out of it, and he quickly licks it, watching as it slowly heals. Shifting into his human form, he takes some shorts out of the hidden trunk in the trees, handing it to Connor. He also places a large shirt over Flicker. Looking at her perfect body, he has to restrain himself from marking and mating her. Glancing at Connor, he can see that he feels the same way. He lifts her up, placing her in his arms. As a wave of guilt hits him when he notices that bruises are beginning to form. But then he remembers what she said. "I hate both of you." Ryder shouldn't have bit her, but overcome with all that anger, he completely understood. "What should we do with her when we get back to the pack house?" Connor asks, as we begin to walk back. "We need her to submit to us, to fully understand that we're her alpha and we dominate her. She needs to understand that she can't leave us or do anything without our permission." Flicker was right. Why couldn't they just have a submissive she-wolf? Right now he would reject her, but his wolf was right. If he wanted to lead the strongest pack, they needed the power their mate would provide. "We'll place her in the pack cells until she can fully understand her place." Connor clarifies, and he agrees, nodding his head in consent. It pained him to do this, but he could see no other way. As alphas, they could not tolerate any disrespect. Connor and he continue their walk back in silence, deep in their own thoughts. From my perspective, my eyes slowly flutter open to the sight of the evergreen pine trees surrounding the pack. I watch as the last rays of sunlight stream through the trees, warming my skin. But the temperature quickly plummets as an unwanted breeze sweeps through, causing me to shiver. Taking a deep breath, I surprisingly feel content. Safe. Protected. The icy breeze arrives again, raking my body. I cross my arms over my chest in an effort to warm myself, but pain lances sharply through my right arm when I move. Confused, I try to recall what happened when I realize absent-mindedly that I'm being carried. Glancing up, Jake's face fills my vision. His expression is guarded, neutral almost in appearance. But his locked jaw and pursed lips reveals his hidden anger. He bends his head towards me, meeting my gaze, causing a warm blush to cover my face. I watch as his carefully guarded face changes as sadness flickers across it. But it's quickly replaced with something cold, distant and unapproachable. He breaks the gaze, and I'm left feeling utterly confused until the memories flood back and I feel like I've been submerged in icy water, escaping the mansion. The alpha's catching me and Ryder ripping his teeth into my shoulder after I admitted that I hate him. I attempt to move my arm again, but it's still painful and I inadvertently wince. Glancing up, I expect to hear some sort of apology, but he continues to remain silent. I realize that he's still fuming after what I told Ryder. I try to shuffle out of his arms, but his grip only tightens, and I know it's a warning. I see the pack house looming in the distance, and my heartbeat rises. There's no way I'll ever be able to escape again. The Alphas will have me on 24-hour watch. After everything that has happened, I know that I can't stay here, not when the Alphas have no respect for me and only want me as their mate for the power I will provide them with. The sun is just setting low on the horizon as we near the house, and I expected to see more people. We've sent them all to their homes, Jake says as if he heard my thoughts. Why I say, and I'm beginning to feel confused as Jake carries me past the extravagant mansion. A place that I will never call home, because you need to become a submissive mate that listens to us. Connor says his voice is hard and cold, and I'm beginning to become worried. They carry me towards the edge of the pack, and my breathing halts as it suddenly sinks in where we're going to. The pack jail. They wouldn't do that to their mate. Would they, I ask Emma? But she doesn't respond. Probably still angry and frustrated about the mess I've gotten us in, they continue to walk in its direction. The stench of dirt and rotting flesh becoming stronger, and my fears are confirmed. They're going to lock me up. Please don't. I whisper, frightened. Never once thinking that they would do something like this. You chose this path, Flicker, not us. Connor says. I try wriggling out of Jake's arms, wincing as pain continues to flare in the bite mark. I can feel that he licked the wound and it had begun to heal, but that wouldn't be enough. I wasn't mated to them, and if I wanted it to heal completely, I would have to stay physically close to them for the next few days. Something that wasn't going to happen. They eventually reach the guards patrolling the prison. Alpha, they both say, bowing their heads in submission. Take her down to the cells and treat her like a prisoner. Jake says, dropping me to the floor as if I'm some useless and feral rogue. But Alpha, she's the Luna. One of the guards says. Looking up, I admire his courage, but I watch as he quickly quivers with fright as both Alphas stare him down. And she will stay there until she submits to us. I won't ever submit. I shout. The Alphas only growl in response. Their eyes beginning to flicker black. Take her and chain her up. Jake says, his voice cold and devoid of any emotion. As the guards lift me up, it takes me a moment to process what he just said. Chain me. I repeat, astonished and suddenly extremely frightened as I look at Jake and Connor. They couldn't be serious. Those scars wouldn't fade until I truly accepted them. Please don't chain me. I whimper. Anything else but don't chain me. Connor's carefully composed mask drops and his features are etched in sadness. He opens his mouth to say something, but Jake rests his hand on his back. Telling him something through the mind link, a second is all it takes for his face to return to its unfeeling state. Connor gives his nod of consent, but he bends down until he's eye level with me. Flicker, all you need to say is that you submit, and then you can return home with us. Connor tells me. I ignore him and he sighs. Taking my silence as a no, turning their backs. They both walk away, leaving me to this cruel fate. I allow the guards to drag me down to the cells. Having no energy to fight, I felt betrayed and hurt. How could they do this to their mate? A gift from the moon goddess. It is in this moment that I truly realized. The rumors were true. They were monsters, and I was never going to open my heart to them. The cells are empty. I'm currently their only prisoner. The guards carefully place me in my cell. I sit there defeated, knowing that there was no point in trying to escape. They would only catch me again, and I couldn't imagine what they would do to me next time. The head officer walks in. His eyes are full of sadness as he clutches the metal cuff with gloved hands. I'm sorry, Luna, he whispers. You don't deserve this, no matter what you've done. He looks like he's about to cry. I place my hands out, screaming in pain when the metal chains finally touch my skin. The smell of burning fills the air. As my skin grows hot underneath the chain, tears are streaming down my face and I'm unable to stop them. Once he attaches my wrists and my ankles, I'm basically immobile, unable to move without causing myself more pain. I feel my wolf trying to communicate with their wolves. She's submitted already, begging for their forgiveness, asking for a second chance, promising that she'll never leave, never disrespect them. But what sort of life is that? No freedom. Always inferior and subservient to them. always expected to obey. They believe the beta has more power than me. If you submit, they'll let us go. Emma says, but she sounds disappointed already, knowing what my answer will be. No. I don't want that sort of life. I'd rather die than be forced to submit. Emma doesn't respond, but at the back of my mind, I can hear her begging their wolves to have these chains taken off. The head officer walks back in again, this time holding a chain for around my neck. The world stops for a minute. They wouldn't place that on me. Pure fear washes over me. The other chain scars would heal eventually, but for some she-wolves, scars around their neck caused by a neck cuff could be permanent if they were too weak. Please no. I whimper, trying to move away, but it only brings more unwanted pain to my body. He doesn't say anything as he attaches the neck cuff, and all I can think is, what had I truly done to deserve this? As I turn away, all I can see is my mate's beautiful face filled with sadness. It's already burnt into my memory, forever haunting me until she decides to submit to us. Sighing out loud, it takes all my willpower not to turn back and embrace her in my arms, soothing her while I whisper comforting word. It wouldn't change anything. She would still challenge our authority and power. Something that couldn't happen. She brought this on herself, Jake reminds me, glancing my way. I meet his gaze and notice his eyes hooded with guilt. I knew that underneath his cold and icy exterior, he cared for Flicker. Loved her. We gave her the choice to submit, and she refused it. I nod. It will only be a few days, I remind myself. She wouldn't stay down there forever. Please. We're sorry, don't chain us up. Please, I'm your mate, a gift from the moon goddess. Don't chain me up. Emma's voice cuts into my thoughts, destroying most of my willpower, but I push on. Ignoring her, I allow my wolf to come to the surface, answering her call. Inside, pain begins to emanate at what I was doing to my beautiful mate, but she needed to learn that we were dominant. The superior beings. Tell the human side to submit, Zach says, emotionless. I still can't understand how this wasn't affecting him. She needs to submit to us, regardless for the pain the human or Emma has to go through. He answers my question, and I'm able to notice that he says Emma's name with sadness, indicating that he does care for her. I'm sorry. Please don't. Emma's voice stops, and it's replaced with a loud and mournful whimper. I can't feel her pain yet, but her painful whimper feels like someone shot an arrow to my heart. I'm so sorry, my beautiful Emma. Please get your human to submit to us. Please, Zach says sorrowfully. I'm surprised that Zach is apologizing. I have never heard him say sorry to anyone. Emma's affecting him more than I thought. Soon after, Zach cuts off the connection, blocking any more thought coming from Emma, both deep in our thoughts. Jake and I continue walking towards the pack house, trying desperately to forget what we had just left behind. It's been 2 extremely long and torturous weeks since the alphas sent me to the pack prison. They haven't bothered to check up on me, revealing how little they actually cared for me. Once a day, one of the pack members arrives at my cell asking if I'm ready to submit. Every day, it's the same monotonous answer. No. Here in the pack prison, they've provided me with the full experience of being a prisoner. The food is served to me once every 3 days if I'm lucky, and half the times it's not even edible. Sometimes I think that the alpha's plan is to just wait for me to die. Then the mood goddess might grant them another mate. I'd lost weight since I came, and I was constantly weak due to the silver chains wrapped around my wrists, ankles, and neck. The pain was still unbearable, but somehow I'd become accustomed to it. A reminder at the back of my mind that I would never forgive the 2 alphas. However, even with the pain and feeling uselessly weak, I still wasn't worried about me. It was Emma I was concerned about. If I didn't shift soon, she would eventually become too weak and tired and would disappear forever. The werewolf side of a person could only survive as long as their human form shifted constantly. Alphas could last the longest time without shifting. Then it was Lunas and Betas and so on, continuing down the rank of werewolves. Since I hadn't claimed the Luna position, Emma sadly wouldn't be able to survive much longer. I still had alpha blood, but it wouldn't be enough, not with the additional silver sapping me of my energy. Worse still was that she hadn't been talking to me, either too weak or too angry for not submitting to our mates. What Emma didn't understand is that I would never submit to them if it was just my life I was responsible for. However, I was also responsible for hers. To keep her alive, I would submit to the 2 alphas. She was my best friend and confidant in a place full of strangers. The imminent problem was I had never imagined the two alphas to keep me contained for so long. I was waiting for them to come down and say, "Well, I hope you've learnt your lesson," but they were just as stubborn as I was. My stomach grumbles with hunger, but I ignore it. Like I've been doing for the past week. As a result of the stupid mate bond, I've also been having difficulty sleeping. Once a werewolf finds their mate and marks them, they both become extremely dependent on each other. The two alphas hadn't marked me yet, and I was dreading the day that happened. But because of their power and the fact that there was two of them, to survive, I needed to remain close to them. It's why Jake's puncture mark still looked bruised. For it to fully heal, I would need to remain next to them. Similarly, it's why I was having trouble sleeping. If I wanted to receive any proper rest, I would need to be annoyingly next to the alphas. Closing my eyes, I try again to fall asleep as I begin to wonder how the two alphas are doing without me. I sigh as I get out of bed. Glancing around the room, Flicker's scent still faintly lingers within it. My wolf rider growls in response to her name. He has become increasingly angry over the past 2 weeks, demanding why she hasn't submitted yet. Deep down, however, I can tell that he just desperately misses his mate. He wants to rub his scent all over her, protect her, wake up in the morning and see her smile. Thinking of this, I glance at the space next to us where Flicker should be warming the bed. But most importantly, he just wants to mark her as his. I flick my eyes over to Connor. He's tossing and turning in bed again, while she's been in the prison. Neither of us have been getting much sleep, and it shows. Yesterday, we yelled at our maid because she served us the wrong breakfast. Our pack has been walking around on eggshells ever since they heard about our mate. Nobody wants to upset us. Even our beta has been careful about what he says. What's worse is that her wolf has suddenly stopped responding to ours. Ryder believes it's an act of defiance. Yesterday, he wanted to storm down to the prison and show his mate who was in charge. But I prevented him. If I went down there, I would probably just forgive Flicker altogether. Sighing, I place my head in my hands. Why was this so difficult? Why couldn't she just submit to us, mood goddess? Why another 3 painful weeks have passed without word from the alphas? It seems they were content to keep me locked up here until I submit or die even. Sighing, I gaze outside the cell into the looming darkness. No guards were stationed there since they hadn't deemed me a threat to the pack. However, it would have been nice to know that I wasn't completely alone. That someone else still knew that I existed. "How are you feeling?" I ask Emma. The only person who still knows that I'm alive. I wait for her response, but it's silent in my head. I can still feel her faint presence, but every day she's been growing weaker. I take a deep breath, trying to calm my worried and erratic heart. She hadn't been responding all week, and I'm becoming increasingly worried. I can't lose her. I'd rather submit to the dominating alphas than lose my best friend. I wonder what they're thinking. Do they know that my wolf is dying, or do they just think that it's an act of defiance that she's not responding to their calls? Every morning, I hear the angry calls from their wolves, demanding me to submit, demanding Flicker to respond. Can't they feel her pain? Don't they know how weak she is, unless we've completed the mating bond? They can't feel my pain. They assume that I'm blocking them out. Emma whispers. "Emma," I rasp. Happy to hear her voice, it meant that she was okay. Well, they're obviously stupid if they think you're blocking them. She attempts to growl at the word stupid, but she doesn't have the energy. It was partially my fault that she was in this condition. I only had to say 2 words, "I submit," but those 2 words meant so much to me. I would always be inferior to my mates. Never have the freedom to go places. I would always need to heed their command, and most importantly, I would never be their equal. Being equal was something both Emma and I wanted. However, she loves the alphas too much that she would be okay with giving it up. "Flicker," she whispers, and it's so faint that I have to concentrate to hear her. "You need to submit. Please, for me. I can't survive much longer." My heart stops beating. My body frozen in fear. Those were the words I dreaded. Can't survive. It circles around in my mind, like an annoying song on repeat. I can still feel Flicker, but her presence is growing fainter. If I don't do anything soon, she will die. Taking a deep breath, I close my eyes. I've realized something from being down here for the past 5 weeks, is that in order to survive with my 2 alphas mate, I would need to become a subservient she-wolf. This meant that I couldn't voice my opinion or contradict what they commanded. I wouldn't have any freedom. But I would do it for Emma. To keep her alive. This is all for you, Emma, I murmur as I open my mouth and shout. Guards. Guards, I call. My voice is raspy, but by the sound of their footsteps walking down the hallway, I know that they've heard me. The head guard who locked me up and another guard arrive immediately, bowing in front of my cell. I found it surprising that they still granted me such respect when I was locked up like a traitor to the pack. Yes, Luna, the head guard says, looking at me with such sadness. Please tell the alphas that I submit. He looks at me in disbelief, which quickly changes to joy. He whispers something to the guard next to him, who quickly runs in the direction of the exit, eager to alert the alphas that I am now theirs to control. As soon as they give their permission, I'll take the chains off you and take to the pack doctor. I nod, agreeing. The other guard swiftly arrives back, but by the dismal look on his face. I know something has gone terribly wrong. They won't unchain you until your wolf starts communicating with theirs. They believe it's a sign of defiance. My breathing increases. Didn't they know that Emma was dying? That she's too weak to submit? Tell them that my wolf is dying. Please tell them that she's unable to communicate. The guard bows his head mournfully. I'm sorry, Luna. They ordered me to not return. They didn't want to hear of your excuses. As soon as their footsteps disappear down the hall, I burst into tears. I'm so sorry, Emma. So sorry that I've gotten us into this awful situation. I promise that if we do get out, I'll obey them completely. Be the perfect submissive mate that they want. I promise you I won't ever put us in this situation again. She doesn't respond, and I don't expect her to. She needs to save all her energy for staying alive. I rest my head against the stone wall. Closing my eyes, I hope for the 100th time since I arrived here that this is all just a horrible nightmare. I stare out the window, watching as the sun's radiant gaze creeps furtively into the room. Rubbing my eyes, I get out of bed. I hadn't received many hours of sleep last night or since the night she entered the pack's cells. I spent most of them thinking of Flicker. I still couldn't believe that she had enough strength to continue playing games with us. When the guard unexpectedly burst into our office yesterday, alerting us that Flicker had given in, we were both ecstatic. We had waited so long for this day, and finally it had arrived. She had submitted. We ran out of the office, nearly shifting into our wolves just because we would arrive there quicker. Derek, our third in command, even asked if we were okay. Apparently we looked happy, but we didn't even reach halfway before Zach stopped me. Apparently her wolf wasn't responding. A clear sign of her defiance. I felt completely heartbroken, sighing. I try to forget yesterday as I look for some clothes to wear. I realize now that it was all a game to her. It would always be in her nature to defy us. Connor growls fiercely at my thoughts, as my heart beginning to harden. At this moment, I was beginning not to care if she loved us or not. We would still mark her as our mate, and she would still provide us with the extra alpha power. Right now, that was all that I was concerned with. Jake also had the same view as me. However, deep inside, I still held on to that glimpse of hope that she would eventually learn to love us. As I find my clothes, my gaze falls on her things which arrived yesterday. Pain tugs at my heart, but I ignore it. Taking a deep breath, I knew that her wolf would eventually submit. They wouldn't be able to survive much longer. Jake is already at the breakfast bar when I arrive downstairs. His cheeks are flushed and sweat coats his body. He'd gone for a run this morning to try take his mind off Flicker, but by the distant look on his face, it obviously hadn't worked. We'll get her back soon, I say. But we both hear the lie. He glances up at me, his eyes filled with sadness. But before I can say anything, Jake shakes his head, clearing his thoughts, the sadness in his eyes immediately transforming into something cold and distant. Good morning, boys, our mother says as she enters into the kitchen, grabbing a plate from the cupboard. I haven't seen your mate. The young guard said that she was released yesterday. Jake growls, and I have difficulty suppressing mine. Mum didn't appreciate it when we growled at her. But we had made that guard promise not to disclose any information. I lock eyes with my brother. He will be punished later. He nods in agreement. She was going to be released. Jake's tone is cold and clipped. But her wolf wasn't responding. Zach begins to growl in my head. He was still furious that Emma wasn't talking to him. But his growl is halted at my mother's sudden intake of breath. What? She gasps, stunned. Your precious mate who has been locked up for the past 6 weeks has finally promised that she will obey you and you're not releasing her. Her wolf's not responding, I repeat. My tone is threatening, daring her to say anything else. Her eyes narrow as she glares at me. She was once a powerful Luna that had the power and authority to control us, but she gave up the position and power years ago. My mother moves to the edge of the bench. I can tell that she is furious with Jake and I, but I'm not daunted by it. Did you know that I was like your mate when I first met your father? She says, maintaining eye contact. A collective gasp from Jake and I travels through the room. We always assumed our mother was subservient. In the beginning, I refused to submit to him. I was from the Night Moon Pack where people respected and obeyed me. She pauses, a ghost of smile playing on her lips. Here, in this pack, I was immediately deemed inferior to him, and he still wanted my respect and love. She laughs, remembering her youth. But then she stops, her face turning serious, her lips moving into a grim line. But he didn't deserve it. What Jake shouts, he's jumped off the bench stool, so he is now towering over her. Luckily, she's standing on the opposite side of the bench. His eyes are flickering between black and blue. My wolf has also perked up, demanding that my mother be reminded of her place. She turns, facing Jake. Looking him in the eye, she states, I know you're angry, Ryder. You believe she is inferior to you, that she should obey your every whim. Yes, he growls, unwavering. And you will understand in time that a mate who challenges you is good. It means that she is fierce and strong, that she will stand for what she believes in. She takes a deep breath and then continues. If an enemy pack attacks, you want a mate who will fight to the death for this pack and its members, not a weak pup who will surrender easily. Time freezes for a moment as I mull over the thought. I wanted Flicker to submit and obey us, but I also expected her to be a strong and fearless Luna at the same time. I realize now that I couldn't have both. Look, she pauses, and I notice that it's becoming difficult for her to speak. I'm telling you both this, to give you a different perspective and to inform you about what happened in the past between me and your father. Her face falls and she takes a deep breath before starting. It was the middle of summer and your father and I just had an argument where he had threatened to whip me if I continued to disobey him. When I went to see him again a few hours after our argument, I didn't know that he was in a meeting with 4 other powerful alphas. I walked in unannounced and told him quite adamantly that I was leaving and he could find some other pack member to be his mate because I was never going to obey him. She closes her eyes, taking a breath. Your father was furious and his wolf hunter quickly took control, to show to the 4 neighboring alphas that he was not to be messed with. He chained me to the pole outside. She points outside the window. It was still there, and he punished me 50 times. I stand there shocked as I try to understand what happened. My father punishing my mother, I couldn't comprehend it. They always looked so deeply in love. Jakes looks at me, his expression mirroring my own. She continues on. When he finished the pack, Doctor rushed to my aid. My back was a bloody mess. They believed that another 10 minutes and I would have been dead. From that day onwards, I became completely obedient. Your father apologized, but I was terrified of him. Doing everything he asked. For the next 6 months, I couldn't sleep next to him. I was petrified that he would punish me again. Your father soon realized that he didn't want a mate who was scared of him. He promised me that he wouldn't touch me again without my permission. It was another 2 years before I allowed your father to mark me. He let me decide when I was ready, and over those 2 years he slowly earned my trust and love. His wolf also realized that I was not inferior to him. That's not likely to happen, Zach says. This time I choose to ignore him. Your mate loves you. It will just take time and effort on both sides, she says, her lips lifting into a small smile. The only reason that her wolf isn't responding is because she is too weak to contact you. My eyes lock with Jake's. Shit, we both mutter. We completely forgot that her wolf would also be suffering. We race out the door, heading towards the pack prison, but before I leave, I turn my head back towards the kitchen. Thanks, Mum. She winks at me. Go, save your mate. I almost walk past her cell, not realizing it was her, standing in front. I stare inside in disbelief at the state Flicker was in. I don't ever remember ordering the silver chains to be placed on her. Connor appears next to me. He's also frozen in place, staring wordlessly at Flicker. I'm horrified at what I see. I never imagined it would be this bad. Flicker's lying at the back of the cell, her head leaning against the stone wall. Eyes closed in pain, a shiver racks her body. But she doesn't open her eyes. She's still in the old top that Connor placed over her all those weeks ago. Staring at her. She was almost unrecognizable, looking more like a skeleton than the beautiful women we had met all those weeks ago. What had we done? I can't stifle my large vicious growl that echoes throughout the cell, expressing my anger and guilt. We never should have let it get this far. We should have intervened weeks ago. At the sound of the growl, her eyes flutter open. She looks around the cell before her gaze lands on us. A frightened look automatically covers her face. Connor growls in response, causing her to shrink further back into the wall, away from us. My mother's words echo in my head. I was terrified of him. I couldn't believe that history was yet again repeating itself. I grabbed the keys, opening the door. I needed to take her to the pack doctor. She needed to be healed urgently. Please, she whispers only audibly. Please. Just leave me alone to die. Never, I whisper. I'm not going to hurt you, I say softly as I slowly approach her. I'm just going to take these off, I inform her, nodding to her chains. She puts her hand out, causing the metal to burn her skin even further. Don't, you'll hurt yourself, she rasps, and I'm taken back by her want to protect us. It was only a little while ago that she hated us. Get the gloves. I shake my head, ignoring her plea. It would take too long. I ignore the burning pain and push the key into the lock, twisting it sharply. I gently pull the chains off, not wanting to hurt her even more. I gasp, horrified when I see the damage we've caused. The silver chains had destroyed all her perfectly porcelain skin. Now it was covered in angry red burn mark which had started to blister. There were patches of dry blood covering her neck, while her wrists and ankles were dripping with fresh blood. Guilt quickly consumes me, but like every other strong emotion I have, I shove it down, leaving me to deal with it later. My mother was right. My beautiful mate was strong. I can't imagine any other she-wolf enduring this pain for so long or behaving so stubbornly. She tries getting up, her legs wobbling like a newborn fawn, but before she takes her first steps, I gently lift her into my arms. Shit. She's so light. Cradling Flicker. I take solace in the feel of her in my arms. It had been 6 weeks since I last touched her. Surprisingly, she snuggles up closer to me, seeking comfort in my arms. If she wasn't in a tremendous amount of pain, this moment would be perfect. I check on Ryder, who seems to be awfully quiet. Ryder, is everything okay? Can't. Here, mate. He shut me off, concentrating hard on trying to find Emma, swallowing hard. I try not to panic. Flicker couldn't lose her wolf. She would never forgive us. I cast a sidelong look to Connor. He's glancing painfully down at Flicker, his eyes flicking specifically to the horrible wounds that mar her body. At this moment, he was more worried about her injuries than her wolf. I speed up the pace, jogging out of the prison and towards the pack doctor. Since it's mid-morning, pack members are out in the village, completing their daily tasks. They leave a path for us, but none of them hide their audible gasps of shock and horror when they see their Luna. They all knew she was in the pack prison, but I assume none of them expected her to be this injured. Not even me. Concern filters through the pack link, but I ignore it, not having time to answer their questions. Flicker was more important. Reaching the surgery, the door is already open, leading us straight into the medical room. I hadn't even told the pack doctor that we needed to see him. But as usual, gossip in this pack spreads like wildfire. I gently place Flicker on the bed as the pack doctor enters. I turn to stand against the foot of the bed, but Flicker grips my arm, tightening her hold on me. She looks at me with pleading eyes, begging me to stay. Surprised and warmed by her new attitude, I edge closer to her. Using her other hand, she grips Connor's arms as well. I glance at the pack doctor, who is smiling warmly at us. When he notices me staring, he quickly shifts into doctor mode. Approaching the bed, he states, "Staying close to your mate will help you and your wolf's healing process, but for the moment you need to release their hands so I can examine you fully." His words are directed to Flicker, and she immediately releases our hands like she was touching poison. From her reaction and the doctor's words, doubt begins to creep into my mind. Did she only want us close so she could heal, or did she actually feel something for us? I don't care for her reasons. Stay close to mate. Wolf needs to heal. My wolf was right, but the comment still stung. The doctor begins checking her wounds for signs of infections. Connor and I automatically growl when he presses his fingers against Flicker's wounds, causing her to wince in pain. He ignores our warning growl and continues checking her before finishing with a deflated sigh. My head whips towards the doctor, along with Flicker's and Connor's, but the doctor's stoic face reveals nothing. My heart beats rapidly as I begin to worry that something irreversible had happened to my mate. When was the last time you communicated with your wolf? He asks Flicker. I watch as sadness washes over her. She swallows deeply, refusing to meet our gaze. Tears began forming at the corner of her eyes, but she quickly wipes them away with her hand. I want to comfort her, but it wouldn't be right. Not when we were the ones who caused this. 2 days. Okay, the doctor says. He sits on the bed and grabs Flicker's hand, comforting her. For the first time in my whole existence, I envy him. When you're fully healed, your wolf will slowly come back to you. He pauses for a moment, and I wait for him to reveal the bad news. But because your wolf is weak, it will take you longer to heal, and you will also feel lethargic at times. But she will come back, won't she? Her voice is soft and filled with doubt and worry. She looks up at him pleadingly. Yes. Don't worry, Luna. Your wolf will definitely return to you. Flicker nods with appreciation. She closes her eyes and leans her head back on the pillow, letting a sigh escape. Standing up, the doctor faces me. Alphas, you will need to continually stay close to Flicker to allow her to heal efficiently. Thanks, Doc, Connor says. He's moved to Flicker's side, standing protectively over her. Anything else, doctor? I mind link him. Any touching of the skin, like holding hands or even a gentle touch. A smirk grows on his face but quickly disappears with the look I give him. I don't think Flicker will let us show affection anytime soon. We'll speed up her healing process. Look after our Luna is the last thing he says before walking out the door. When I glance at Flicker, she's fallen asleep on the bed and guilt punches through me again. When was the last time she'd received a decent sleep? Connor gently lifts her into his arms, opening the door for him. We both walk in silence towards our house, deep with thoughts concerning our precious mate. Warm, soft. Silky sheets press against my skin as I cautiously open my eyes. Dapple morning sunlight streams in through the window, bathing the room in a beautiful, soft orange glow. 6 weeks ago, I had looked at this room and felt disgust, hatred, trapped. Now I still feel trapped, but I've accepted my situation. I'm never going to leave here. The thought depresses me. Being trapped and giving up goes against every fiber of my being. But I promised Emma, never again would I place us in a situation where she could die. I wouldn't do anything that could land me back in the pack prison. Just the thought of the pack prison forces an unwanted shiver to crawl down my spine. I glance down at my wrist. The wounds had just started the healing process, the dry blood slowly starting to form scabs. But I would need the Alpha's help to fully recover. After 6 weeks in the pack prison, I was too weak to recover by myself. As I continue inspecting my wounds, Connor walks in. His eyes immediately fall to my neck and then damaged wrists. I watch as his eyes soften as guilt quickly crosses his face. When he notices me staring, his mouth quickly morphs into a strained smile. How are you feeling? His voice is soft, laced with hidden sadness. It takes me a little while to respond. The words submissive, obedient and compliant keep rolling around in my head. If I were to survive as their mate and keep Emma safe, I needed to become the perfect, subservient she-wolf. Bowing my head, I reply, I'm okay. Thank you for asking, Alpha. Lifting my head, I see his eyes widen with shock. Okay, Connor mutters, at a loss for what to say. His eyes flicker between black and blue, and I instinctively scoot back to the end of the bed, afraid of his wolf. Thankfully, Connor doesn't seem to notice. Please get dressed, Flicker, and meet us downstairs for breakfast in the kitchen. I nod in response as he begins to exit the room. He pauses in the doorway. Have you heard from Emma? He whispers melancholically. No, Alpha, I respond, and with that he softly closes the door behind him. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. It was going to be hard, restraining myself from voicing my opinion or fighting for what I want. But for Emma's survival, I would do anything. I rest for another minute before I carefully push myself out of bed. I take small steps towards the closet. The pain in my ankles is present but bearable. Opening the door, I stand there shocked as I gawk at the floor-to-ceiling rack of clothes. The alphas had 1/3 of the space. Most of their clothes consisting of shorts. Tops and shorts. It was easy to see which clothes belonged to who. Jake's clothes selection was filled with colors of black, gray, and the occasional dark blue, while Connor's clothes contained light blues, greens, and white. They were almost polar opposite. I then turned to glance my clothes. I didn't know where to start. They were split into different sections: fancy dresses, shorts, tops, pajamas, and then some more casual dresses. I hadn't even looked at the jewelry. It begged the question to how much money they actually owned flicking through the clothes. I didn't want to wear anything too restrictive, so I decided to go with a light, modest blue dress. Moving to the mirror, I jump back in fright at my appearance. The dress hangs limply, consciously revealing the weight I had lost. My cheekbones were protruding while my face had a sallow tinge, hiding my blush that everyone loved to see. The wound on my neck was still a nasty red, and I knew that it wouldn't completely heal until I fully mated with the 2 alphas. I probably should have wrapped a scarf around it, but I wanted the alphas to feel a little guilty. However, it mainly served as a reminder for me. What would happen if I was ever disobedient? I stepped back, my frail and feeble appearance repulsing me. It looked like I had just stepped into a skeleton costume for Halloween. Trying to forget my appearance, I moved towards the door. Opening it, I pray to the moon goddess that nothing horrible happens. Entering the hallway, I slowly walk down the steps as I follow the heavenly scent of someone's cooking, which leads me to the kitchen. Standing just outside, I peer in to find the 2 alphas sitting on bar stools, their backs turned to me. There is an empty seat between them, which I assume is my place. If I was still my old self, I would have chosen the next seat over. However, that was a clear sign of disrespect, and I needed to play the role as a submissive mate. I edge closer to the kitchen, not quite ready to make my appearance, when I notice a small, curvy girl with curly brown hair gripping a fry pan. I immediately assume that she is the cook. She turns around, her eyes widening as she spots me lurking at the back. She graces me with a warm smile as she bows. "Luna," she says, her voice filled with respect. Connor and Jake whip their heads towards me. Connor glances at me briefly, pausing on my neck wound before returning back to his food. However, Jake's eyes travel slowly up my body, and I'm frozen in place, trapped under his spell as he gazes with me in scrutiny. He frowns when his eyes reach my wounds, but instead of sadness like Connor's reaction this morning, his eyes darken with uncontrollable anger. He turns back and I'm suddenly released from his spell. I try to walk confidently towards the stools but fail miserably. I can't hide my fear and nervousness when my rapid heartbeat gives me away. "Is pancakes okay for you, Luna?" the cook asks. "Please call me Flick," I assure her as I hop onto the stool and place my arm out to shake hers. A growl prevents our hands from touching. "Marilyn, you don't have the status to call Flicker by her name. You will refer to her as Luna." "Understood," Jake orders, using the alpha command, and leaving Marilyn with no choice but to obey. I'm about to offer my objection, but I know that it would only land me back in prison, the place I want to be furthest from at the moment. I retreat my hand back and offer her an apologetic smile. She smiles back before she returns to the cooking. The alphas return to their brooding state and I allow my eyes to roam. The kitchen was just as ostentatious as the rest of the house. The stovetop, oven, and fridge seemed to be from the latest model. The cupboards were predominantly covered in glass. The purpose, I realized, was to show their expensive and impractical kitchenware. However, its most striking feature was the gilded crisscross tiles beneath the cabinets. I think back to our small and quaint kitchen. My father had nothing that demonstrated his wealth or power. "Pancakes. Alpha," Luna, Marilyn says, handing me the plate. As she bows her head, I gaze down in delight at the 3 stacks of golden butter pancakes. This would certainly put some weight on me, which wouldn't necessarily be a bad thing. I take my first bite, my piece drenched in maple syrup, and I instantly fall in love. I didn't know heaven existed on earth. While chewing my second bite, I unconsciously moan. I instantly freeze, knowing that I'm currently swimming in dangerous waters. I can feel the alpha's eyes on me, black with lust and desire. My heart rate increases as I try to decide what to do next. The air is heavy with tension. Marilyn suddenly enters the room and I couldn't be more thankful. She bows to the alphas and me again as she quickly grabs some kitchen utensils. Thank you for the pancakes, Marilyn. They're delicious, I say. She smiles at me in response before leaving the room. Relief courses through me as I go to take another bite, this time making sure that I stay silent. Good morning, everyone, a loud feminine voice calls. I look up, seeing a girl dressed in a pink dressing gown descending the stairs. She was average height, with golden blonde hair tied up in pigtails and a large mischievous smile plastered on her face as she jumped the last few steps. Did you filthy dogs? Save me some food, she asks without hesitation. I am shocked at her words. I would never have the audacity to call the two alphas that. Connor and Jake both growl at her words, but she seems unfazed by their actions. It suddenly dawns on me that this girl must be their sister. As she walks towards us, her gaze finally falls on me. Flicker, she voices informally as she runs towards me, her smile growing wider than I originally thought possible. Jake and Connor adjust their positions as she envelopes me in a warm and fierce hug. Her hands accidentally dig into my skin, causing me to wince. Oops, sorry, she says as she releases me, her gaze traveling from the wounds on my ankles to my neck. Wow. My brothers really did hurt you, she says indifferently as she walks around the bench to get food, but Jake's hand reaches out, grabbing her arm, keeping her in place. Cassidy, you may be our sister, but you don't have the power to disrespect us. We're your alpha. His voice is strained, and I notice that Jake is struggling to stay in control, his eyes flickering between black and blue. I watch, fascinated by their interaction and terrified for Cassidy's fate. Her wolf is also present, fighting fiercely for control. Finally, she bows her head, defeated. Jake gives a nod of approval and releases her hand. The room is cast into an uncomfortable silence, hopping back onto the stool. I keep my eyes downcast as I continue to eat my pancakes, which are now stone cold. Flicker, are you free today? Cassidy says as she scavengers the cupboards for food. I'm about to respond when she opens her mouth. Of course you're free, she laughs. Today I'm going to take you around the village, introduce you to the pack members. It sounded like a good idea. If I was staying here indefinitely, I might as well start meeting the pack members. Absolutely not, Connor says, his voice loud and clear. Flicker, you need to rest. You need to stay in the house until you have fully recovered. His voice is soft, but I still feel disappointed. I understand, Alpha, my voice is detached and emotionless. I sense that Connor and Jake are using the pack link to communicate with each other about my new attitude. I wait for their comment about it, but surprisingly they keep quiet. Cassidy. After breakfast, Mother wanted your help. She said something to do with training the pups, Jake informs her. She lets out a long, exasperated sigh while rolling her eyes. Cassidy, Connor says sternly, his eyebrows raised in warning. Yes. Yes. I know. My attitude is not appreciated. I'm leaving now, she walks out of the room, taking all the happiness and joy with her. I continue staring down at my breakfast, waiting in a submissive position for the alpha's next order. Flicker, Connor says, lifting my chin so it is level with his eyes. We've got some pack business to deal with. We expect you to be resting while we're away. Understood. But I say but stop when Jake's eyes narrows. We just want you to rest, Flicker. We need you to get better. I know I need to rest. But for me to get better, you need to stay close to me. Not finish off pack business, I think. However, instead of externalizing my thoughts, I bow my head and bare my neck in a symbol of respect. There would be no point in talking. They wouldn't listen anyway. I hop off the stools as Jake heads towards the door, but Connor lingers close to me. I can feel his gaze on me. Out of the corner of my eye, I watch as Connor's head slowly leans in towards mine. As he gets closer, my body becomes paralyzed with fear as I realize that he wants to touch me. My hands begin to shake slightly. I didn't want him to touch me. I didn't love him. I can feel his breath fanning my cheek, but at the last second, he catches Jake's small shake of his head and immediately backs away. Heading towards the door. We'll be back at 600 Flicker. Jake pauses for a moment, his body halfway out the door. Don't leave the house, he says before closing the door shut. My whole body relaxes as I release a breath I didn't know I was holding. My hands begin to massage my forehead as I try to think of a way to keep myself occupied for the next few hours. I didn't know how long it was going to take me to fall into this position of being completely inferior to them. Was I always going to be this terrified? I glance around the kitchen, surprisingly feeling lonely without no one to talk to. Oh, Emma. I miss you so much. I wait for her reply, but there is still silence on the other end. Sighing, I walk out of the kitchen into the expensively furnished lounge. The couches were placed in a circular pattern around the 70-inch plasma TV. Everything in here screamed money and wealth. I head towards the couch when my vision begins to blur slightly. I start blinking, but it only makes it worse. I grip the end of the couch as a wave of dizziness hits me, not having enough balance or energy to walk another step. I feel myself falling as my back slides down against the back of the couch until I hit the floor. My head had begun to feel heavy as the feeling of nausea begins to creep up inside me. I place me head against the cold, hard floor, trying to regain some energy, but to no avail. The last thing I think of before closing my eyes is the doctor's words which echo in my head. Alphas, you will need to continually stay close to Flicker to allow her to heal efficiently before I black out entirely. Shit, I mutter as I slide into my office chair. Flicker wasn't the fiery independent, strong-willed she-wolf that she was when we first met her. She had actually become subservient. Something that both Jake and I had wanted but now completely detested. Our mother was right, we couldn't rule with a Luna who bowed down to anyone, who didn't fight for what she believed in. We need to show Flicker that we actually do love and adore her, I say to Jake, who wears the same expression to me. Flicker's scared and anxious attitude this morning will forever be branded into my memory. I couldn't even give her an innocent touch without frightening her. We had really messed everything up. I agree. But we need to try and keep our wolves under control, Jake says seriously. Flicker probably saw your actions this morning as an assault rather than a romantic gesture. Romantic gesture, I scoff, trying to contain the smirk spreading across my face as I imagine what I wanted to do with her. I know what you're thinking about, brother, and yes, that's what I wanted too, he laughs, before his face suddenly turns serious again. But that's half the problem. We're taking things too quickly. We need to take things slowly, so Flicker doesn't think of it as an assault. He rubs his head, sighing. Flicker was too scared this morning to do anything but sit there frozen with fear. I agree, I say, whispering. It will be difficult trying to keep our wolves under control. But for Flicker's sake, we need to show her that it's okay to speak up for herself, that she isn't inferior to us, but our equal, Jake whispers. We pause for a moment, waiting for our wolves to react, stating that they were superior. However, Zach is eerily quiet. Jake frowns in confusion, before an expression of understanding crosses his face. Our wolves have realized the consequences of treating our mate inferiorly. They can't hear Emma, I say. This was our second chance, I realized, to win our mate back. Make her fall in love with us all over again. Jake smiles at me. The first time in a long while since we saw our beautiful mate. Slumping back into the chair, I gaze at all the paperwork but am unable to prevent the smile slipping from my face. This is going to work, I chant to myself over and over again. Jake takes a seat next to me. He immediately gets to work, reviewing a piece of paper outlining an agreement from one of the neighboring packs, Alpha, glancing at the large amounts of paperwork that we've left unattended for the past few months. I dutifully take the documents from the top of the pile and begin reviewing it. This one was addressed to Jake, so I pass it off to him and go to grab another one when we receive an alarming message from our beta. Flicker was in hospital, unconscious and in critical condition. We rushed to the pack doctor, nearly shifting into our wolves, but we didn't want to alarm the pack. Everyone was already overly concerned with the state Flicker was in. How could this have happened? She was perfectly fine when we left her this morning. She still looked sickly, but it wasn't enough for her to be in critical condition at the pack hospital. I begin to worry as my thoughts drift to possible scenarios. Had someone attacked her? No, they couldn't have. There were pack members guarding the house. Or had she attempted to run again? My anger begins to rise at the last possibility, but I knew deep down that she wouldn't dare pull a stunt like that. Not after what happened last time. We reach the room and I slam the door open, but my anger dissipates completely when my gaze falls on Flicker. Connor moves to stand next to me. Shock and fear is written all over his face. What the hell happened, I think, as I slowly approach. She was deathly pale, even more so than before. The dark rings under her eyes were more evident, and her scars and wounds had somehow become worse, contrasting sharply with her pale skin. Standing beside her, I carefully slip my hand under her cold fingers. Sparks immediately spread along my hand and up my arm. reassuring me that she was still alive. I breathe a sigh of relief. She was going to be okay. I hear the door open and I glance up to see the pack doctor. I'm expecting his usual serene, calm face, but instead his face is twisted in an expression full of anger, hate, and frustration, directed towards us. I step out of his way as he walks briskly towards Flicker and begins checking on her. I glance at my brother and he wears the same confused and slightly angry expression. How dare he disrespect us? I didn't care if he was the pack doctor. We were the alphas of the pack. He turns around, facing us. My brother and I stand up fully, just towering over him, threatening him to disrespect us again. I notice the fear in his eyes, but his face still remains angry and hateful. How dare you leave our Luna alone? I told you that she needed to be close to you, and what happens? He pauses in his yelling, and I'm sure the whole pack had heard him. He drops his voice to a whisper. You leave her to go to pack business. I am too stunned to respond. I should be furious that he is blatantly disrespecting us, but I realize he's right. Guilt rips through me. This was all my fault. The doctor take a step forward. Flicker is hanging on by a thread. She is in critical position at the moment. For the next week, you'll need to stay close to her, or else she could. He doesn't say the word. But he doesn't need to. The message was clear. In that moment, I realized that I had failed as a mate. For the rest of eternity, I would try to make it up to her. For the next week and longer, I would never leave her side. I nod in understanding. And I hear the doctor's breath of relief. This could have gone a lot differently if our wolves weren't silent. She was trying to tell us this morning, Connor muttered to me. Tell us what? That we needed to stay with her. So she could get better. It suddenly all made sense. This morning, Flicker wasn't asking to go explore the pack. She had been asking for us to stay with her. I suddenly felt even worse. I had complete dismissed her. The pack doctor leaves the room and I kneel next to Flicker, grabbing her hand. I promise, Flicker. I promise that I'll try to be a better mate. Please just give me chance, I whisper. But she doesn't wake up and I don't expect her to. Releasing her hand. I take a seat next to Connor, knowing that'll will sit here for the rest of eternity. If it takes her that long to wake, I will never leave her again. I open my eyes, slowly blinking as I become adjusted to my surroundings. The room smells strongly of anesthetic and I instantly realize that I'm in the doctor's surgery. Again, my gaze falls on the two alphas. They're sitting on the chair sleeping, their heads resting on their shoulders. They almost look cute sleeping on the chairs like that. Stop. What the hell is wrong with me? I can't think like that. I won't fall in love with them. What's the point when they don't even love me? I keep repeating this, hoping to reassure myself. They only want me for the power I will give them. Sighing, I again ask the moon goddess why she decided to pair me with these two dominant alphas. I take another sweep of the room as I try to recall the events that brought me here. It only takes a short while as I quickly remember how the alphas had left me alone in the house to complete pack business, which led to me feeling weak and collapsing. One of the guards must have found me and rushed me to the hospital. As I sift through the events, I realize that it was their fault that I'm in the hospital. If they had only listened this morning, it could have all been avoided. Sighing inwardly, I knew that they would never admit to their mistake. I was inferior to them. Deep in thought, I don't realize that the two alphas have moved until they're standing at the edge of my bed. Glancing up, I'm surprised to see sadness etched on their faces, especially Jake's. It's silent for a moment and I'm unsure what to say. Flicker Connor whispers as he grips my pale arm. It immediately sends a wave of sparks through my body. We're so sorry. I know you probably hate us. He pauses for a moment and Jake takes over, but we will try and make it up for you. We will try to be better mates. You're not inferior to us anymore. My eyes widen in shock. I'm speechless. As first, I think it's a cruel joke. It's very uncharacteristic of them to say these things. But by their concerned and sympathetic expression, I know they're being serious. I pause for a moment, letting the words sink in for a moment. I'm not inferior anymore. I begin to feel really confused. What in the world caused them to change their entire attitude? I go to contact Emma for help, but realize sadly that she's still not there. Flicker Connor whispers, bringing me out of my thoughts. I know you're confused, but please trust us. I look up at them, and for the first time since I arrived, I decide to give them a chance. Okay, I whisper. The alphas stand there shocked, before a grin spreads across Connor's face while Jake sends me small smile. For once they actually look their age. I'm glad to see you're awake, Flicker. The doctor walks in. Shattering the peaceful moment between the alphas and I, he gently grabs my arm, checking my pulse and then places his stethoscope over my heart. Unnecessary, really. I'm sure he could easily hear my calm pace. How are you feeling, Flicker? He asks. I pause for a moment. The two alphas standing beside my bed seem suddenly intimidating again. I know I promised to trust them, but I would still leave if I were ever given the chance. I'm okay, I replied. It was all I could say for the moment. I couldn't reveal that I was still frightened by the alphas or that I was still in pain. My wounds were a constant reminder of the power the alphas wielded over me and what would happen if I ever disobeyed them. I could never forget that. I shiver at the thought. Flicker, are you cold? Jake says. He leans in closer to me and I flinch away before realizing that he was just helping to lift the blankets higher. Pain flickers across his face and I instantly feel remorse. I'm sorry, Alpha. I thought. I know what you thought, he cuts me off, his voice gruff. Hiding his emotions. He moves away from the bed and leans against the wall, looking out the window. For a few minutes there is a tense silence. Before Connor speaks, Doc. Can we take her home now? Yes. Yes. Please take her home, he says, eager to get me out of here and away from the unpredictable alphas. Remember, Flicker. You'll need to stay close to the alphas to recover, he says to me, but he's looking at the alphas when he speaks. Connor doesn't respond, but I can tell that he knew the question was directed towards him. I go to slide out of bed when a wave of dizziness hits me and the room starts to blur. I grab onto Connor's arm. The closest thing to me and my vision instantly clears. Sparks run up my arm while a feeling of happiness begins to grow inside me as a result of his touch. I want to relish in the feeling, but I reluctantly let go of his arm. I couldn't let the alphas in that easily. Deep down, I was still afraid of them. Connor doesn't let the sadness show on his face, keeping his expression neutral. I watch curiously as he bends down and lifts me into his arms. You don't have to carry me. I can walk myself, I tell him, but he just gives me a pointed look, sighing. Knowing that I couldn't realistically walk by myself, I ignore my previous thoughts and seek comfort in his arms, leaning my head against his chest. I wish Emma was here. She would ecstatic that we were this close to her mate. I don't look, but I know Connor is smiling. Jake trails behind us as we step outside the doctor's. I can't believe how much time I'd lost today, I think, watching as the sun sinks into the horizon. Connor leads me through one of the pack villages, but it seemed to be abandoned. Where were the pack members? Where are all the pack members? I ask, looking at Connor. We sent them out, he says vaguely. Now my curiosity was piqued. Why would he send them out? Alpha. Where did you send them? A look of sadness and annoyance passes over his face, before he looks stoic again. Please call me Connor. Flicker. He's looking down at me, pleading. The problem was that I couldn't call him Connor. Not with what they did to me. Connor was just too personalized. Too intimate. It meant that I acknowledged them as my mates, and at this moment it was just too much. He sighs, knowing I won't give in. We sent them out, so they wouldn't see you in a vulnerable position. I nod in acknowledgement, but I know he is falsifying the truth. He didn't send them out so they would avoid seeing me weak and vulnerable. It was to prevent the pack members from observing how their alphas couldn't look after their one and only mate. I roll my eyes at this information. As we reach the mansion, Jake steps up from behind us and opens the door for Connor. He moves into the lounge and places me on the couch. Do you feel like watching a movie? Flicker, Connor asks. I don't really mind, Alpha, I say with my head bowed. I hear Connor's obvious sigh, but he continues to look through the DVD drawer. I'm surprised when Jake takes a close seat next to me. All my nerves are on edge and I want to move over, but that would be a clear sign of disrespect. I can feel his dark eyes on me, but I don't acknowledge him until he calls my name. Flicker, he says. I glance up at him. Nervously, he gently grips my hands, creating a feeling of euphoria as sparks spread throughout my body. You're equal to us. I know we didn't treat you right at the beginning, but we're trying. For now, our wolves are silent as they try and connect to your wolf. I nod in agreement. You're still and will always belong to us. You're our mate and we low. He pauses for a moment, and I know it's really difficult for him to say these things. And we love you. We will always love you. Please understand that. I will, Alpha. A look of disappointment flashes across his face at the word Alpha. But it quickly disappears. It was going to take time. Grand declarations of love weren't going to change my whole attitude in a split second. But eventually, one day, if they treat me right, I may just fall in love with them. I'll go get some food, Jake says, getting off the couch and leaving me with a sudden feeling of emptiness. Sighing, I watch as Connor opens a drawer and starts searching for a DVD to watch. Let me help you, Alpha, I say, trying to be useful. I get up off the couch and start walking towards Connor when another wave of dizziness hits me and I sway slightly. Stars dancing across my blurred vision. Flicker, he says worriedly as he grips my arm, and my vision instantly begins to clear. I'm okay, I manage to say. But he doesn't let me go. No, you're not, Jake's gruff voice appears from the kitchen. He saunters towards me and I yelp in surprise as he unexpectedly lifts me up. Where are you taking me? I ask worriedly. The last time he had me in this position was when he was taking me to the pack cells. He sighs as he understands where the worry stems from. Flicker, he states, and I twist my face towards him. Meeting his gaze. You will never return to the pack cells. You should have never have been there in the first place. But that is our fault. Please understand that. I nod my head, acknowledging what he is saying. He climbs up the stairs, moving in the direction of their bedroom. Connor follows right behind us. When we enter, the bedroom is cloaked in darkness despite the blinds being up. The comforting sun's gaze had now fully disappeared, instead replaced by the encroaching and hostile storm clouds. Jake gently places me into bed while they both begin to get undressed. Even though I'm still scared of them, I can't help but stare at their chiseled chests. If only Emma was here now, I'm sure she would be salivating. They slip into bed, lying incredibly close that their heat almost suffocates me, but after weeks in the stone-cold cell, I relish their warmth. Sleeping next to them, I can feel my strength growing as my wounds begin the healing process. Sighing as there was no place for my head to rest, I consciously place it on Connor's chest. Even though my eyes are shut, I can feel the smile growing on his face. The sound of footsteps echo through the dungeon, and I groan internally. The Alphas had come to visit me. Using my last remaining energy, I pull myself off the filthy ground. I would not look weak in front of them. I ignore the pain that lances through my body as I stand behind the bars. The pain had become a comfort over these past few months. It was a reminder that I was still alive. Still living despite everything I'd endured. The sound of a high-pitched laugh joins their footsteps, and I realize that the Alphas had also brought their plaything down to the dungeons. The Alphas arrive at the cell with the blonde bimbo attached to them. Connor grins at me sadistically while he grabs the blonde's hand and kisses it. I want to regurgitate, but I still feel jealous. Stupid mate bond, I mutter. Connor chuckles and just continues to kiss her. My attention slides to Jake. He was still the scarier one between the two Alphas. He meets my gaze, his lip curling into a sinister smile. I lower my eyes, frightened as I take an involuntary step back, my entire body shuddering. Connor smiles again while Jake smirks at me. They hadn't even said anything and I was already petrified. I'm bored. When are we leaving? The blonde whines. Very soon, love. We just need to talk to. Connor pauses for a moment as he tries to find something to call me. Your mate, I respond, stepping closer to the bars. No matter how much they hated me for disobeying them, I was still their mate. A gift from the moon goddess. We didn't give you permission to speak, Jake sneers. He steps in close enough to the bars that I could spit on him. He seems to read my thoughts and moves away. If he ever came close again, I wouldn't just spit, I would rip his eyes out. Emma would be appalled if she was still alive. They could have saved her. But by the time they arrived to let me out of the cell all those months ago, Emma was too far gone. After that, they left me in the cell to rot, waiting for my imminent death. Now I spend all my spare time planning my revenge. We took your advice, Flicker, Jake smirks. My forehead creases with confusion as my eyes narrow. What game was he playing? We decided to pick a new Luna for the pack. This is Samantha. I take another glance at Samantha. Surely they were joking. She as Luna. The whole pack would be dead in no time. But then another thought crosses my mind. If they had their Luna, surely they could let me go. Hope rises in me. I could be free. Don't think you're leaving this cell, Flicker Connor states sardonically. We still need your power. So we will still mark and mate with you, Jake states blandly, as if he was reading from a school textbook. I take another step back, shaking my head. Tears begin to escape from my eyes. No. This can't happen. You can't do this, I scream at them. Suddenly becoming hysterical, Jake walks up to the bars, a deadly smile on his face. Oh, Flicker, Jake taunted. We can and we will do this. Don't worry once you have a few of our pups. We promise that we'll leave you to die in peace. I hate you. Sure you do, Jake says, laughing it off, and then I say the one thing that no mate should ever say. I wish the moon goddess never mated me with you. I hear the sudden intake of breath from Connor, but I continue to study Jake. His carefully composed mask cracks, and for once, I see raw pain etched on his face. I step away from them, heading towards the back of the cell. I was tired of being terrified of them. If I was going to die, I might as well die fighting. I awake, hyperventilating. Sitting up, I drink in the sight of the room, which helps to calm my erratic heart and uneven breaths. It was just a horrible nightmare, I repeat to myself as I survey the room again. My heart skips a beat as my eyes fall on the two alphas. The traumatizing events of the nightmare come rushing back to me. It didn't happen. The alphas wouldn't do that to me, I murmur to myself, but I can hear the lie in my words, and I don't have the energy to contradict myself, even though they said they would never throw me back into the cells. I still feel like I'm walking on eggshells around them, sighing inwardly. I check if Emma is there. Nothing. It's still silent in my head. I wish she was here with me. Tilting my head, I look out the window. It was still pitch black outside. I sit still for a moment before I make the rash decision to get up. I begin to wriggle my way out when an arm wraps around my waist, securing me in place. My breathing heightens as images flood into my mind of times when I've been trapped by the alphas. Taking a deep breath, I flick my eyes over to Jake and notice that he was still deeply asleep. It was just an instinctive response. Keeping my eyes on his face, I gently pull his arm away from my body, ignoring the electric sparks that travel up my arm, the so-called perks of having a mate. Quickly, before he tries to restrain me again, I crawl out towards the end of the bed. Swiftly jumping out, I take a moment to gaze at the two alphas, and just waiting for them to wake up and yell at me, but after a few short minutes they remain fast asleep. I pad across the carpeted floor, heading towards the door. I wasn't trying to escape, I just wanted to have some time for myself. I knew what the doctor said, but I should be able to manage by myself for a few hours. Opening the door, the luminescent chandelier lights blinds me, and I pause for a moment, waiting for my eyes to adjust. Walking towards the stairs, I notice a large portrait-shaped mirror resting on the wall. I must have missed it before. Glancing at my reflection, I'm surprised at what I see. The wounds were still visible, but the redness was almost completely gone. I was healing quicker than I thought possible. I still looked like a skeleton, but a few proper meals over the next few weeks should easily fix that. I move away from the mirror, my mood suddenly uplifted by my change in appearance. I hurry down the stairs as the smell of food wafts into my nose. I hadn't realized that it was nearly breakfast. I hear voices drifting come from the kitchen, and I slow my steps. I didn't want to meet any pack members and have them stare at me in pity. I'm about to head back to the bedroom, rethinking my whole plan when Cassidy appears from the kitchen. She pauses as she sees me, and I wait for her sympathetic expression, but instead her lips spread into a warm smile. Marilyn appears behind Cassidy. She looks shocked to have found me. "Luna, would you like some breakfast?" she says, bowing. It takes me a moment to respond. "Please, Marilyn, don't call me Luna." She's about to intercept, but I cut her off with my hand. "I know what the alphas said, but when it's just you and me, please just call me Flicker. And now of the bowing business either. I'm not royalty." She smiles genuinely at me and walks back into the kitchen. "You look better," Cassidy says, standing in the doorway. "I know. I'd thought it'd take weeks for me to heal, but after last night I feel much better." Cassidy's eyes go wide. "Wait, are you saying that last night you had?" I stop her before she says anything else. "We just slept. Trust me, that won't be happening for a long time. A long, long time." "Okay," she says, relieved. "I just thought because you look so much better than before." I know your wounds are still visible, but you look great, Flicker. Thanks, I say as my stomach begins to grumble. Cassidy laughs at me and I can't help but join in with her. I realize that this is first time that I've laughed since I've been brought here. Let's get some breakfast, shall we, Cassidy says as she turns into the kitchen. Yes, please, I say, following behind her. The pancakes were delicious. Thank you, Marilyn, I say as she takes my plate away. Cassidy was sitting next to me, still eating. Would you like anything else to eat, Flicker? No. I'm fine, but a glass of water would be great. She nods, and in an instant, a glass of water is in front of me. I take a sip. So, where are my stupid moronic alpha brothers this morning, she states matter-of-factly. I splutter, choking on my water as I stare with her in shock. How could she call them that? I would probably be sent back to the cells. The thought sends a shiver down my spine. Are you okay? Cassidy asks as she places her hand on my arm in a comforting gesture, swallowing. I make sure the water has all gone. How can you say that? My voice drops to a whisper. Won't you get in trouble? Maybe. They've always threatened but never actually went through with it. She pauses for a moment, thinking of the possibility before she shakes her head, clearing the thought. My brothers weren't always like this, Cassidy says. I look at her confused. I can't imagine the two alphas being any different than they were now. You need to understand that their wolves play a significant part in their attitude and personality. I'm about to interrupt, but she places her hand up and I close my mouth. Up until the age of 15. I looked up to my brothers, admired them. Even she pauses for a moment, a faint smile playing on her lips as she remembers. But that all changed when Dad and Mum backed down from their position as Alpha and Luna. Their wolves became entirely dominant. Her face falls and she avoids eye contact with me, instead staring at her half-eaten plate of pancakes. My brothers. Wait, no, she pauses, shaking her head. Their wolves, Jake and Ryder, wanted me to obey their every command, like I was some lowly servant she-wolf instead of their sister. She sighs, playing with the pancakes on her plate. The rest of the pack were happy to obey their every whim. They were their new alphas. But I don't know. I guess I expected a different type of leadership under my brothers. I expected them to show compassion and mercy. Instead, they rule by inciting fear and terror. It's why we're the strongest pack in America. It's why no one dares to challenge their authority.